Good evening, everyone. Today is May 31st, 2023. It's 3 minutes after 7, and I call the meeting of the South Kingstown Zoning Board of Review to order. Members present, my name is Thomas J. Daniels. I'm the Vice Chairman. Our Chairman, Rob Cagnetta, is absent this evening. Members present to my left are William Rosen, to my right, Susan Walsh, and Arlene Hicks. We have a fifth member, Kevin Diamond, who should be here shortly. We won't take any testimony. We'll go through the opening first, and when he gets here, we'll call the case. Also present tonight are Amy Goins, our South Kingstown Special Legal Counsel, Jamie Gorman, our South Kingstown Building and Zoning Official, and Jessica Spence, our Administrative Support Associate. The board is made up of 8 people, 5 regular voting members. Good evening, Mr. Diamond. I just introduced you. I'll introduce you again. Kevin Diamond. We have 5 regular voting members and 3 alternate members, of which we currently have 2 vacancies. A minimum of 4 members are required to be present to vote. In the event that fewer than 4 members are present, an alternate will step in. No more than 5 members are entitled to vote. The 5 members that I introduced to you will be voting members tonight. Applicants are here either for a variance, dimensional or use, or to seek a special use permit, and tonight we have only special use permits on the agenda. The board is a quasi-judicial body created by the South Kingstown Ordinance pursuant to state statutes. We don't follow strict rules of evidence. We operate in what we believe to be a fair and equitable manner. We try to let everyone speak unless they get carried away or it is determined not to be relevant. So in the interest of time, please try to be on point and brief. We do our best not to argue and keep things civil, and we try to have the last petition started by 10 p.m. When your petition is called, please come forward. Clearly state your name and spell it. Please speak clearly so everyone can hear you. You'll then be asked to take an oath to tell the truth, and you can present your petition along with any other witnesses you might have. The board will then ask you or your witnesses questions. After the petitioner has presented their testimony, anyone else with questions about the application or wanting to support or oppose the petition will then be asked to step forward. They will identify themselves, be sworn in, and present their testimony, which may be followed up by questions from the board. Please do not direct questions to the petitioner or to other witnesses. The board will allow the petitioner to answer questions raised by the audience and or respond to comments after the comment period. After hearing all testimony and before a vote is taken by the board members, the board members will be asked to openly discuss the evidence presented. We have special use only tonight, and that requires at least 3 voting members to vote in favor of the petition for the granting of the requested relief. Board members will ask a lot of these questions for good reason. We cannot grant anything we choose. There are rules to follow per South Kingstown's ordinance. You must give testimony to support certain facts to allow your request to be approved. For a special use permit, you must present the following. The special use permit that you're requesting is specifically authorized by the zoning ordinance. Somewhere in this ordinance, this has to be authorized. If not, we do not have the power to grant it. Special use permits requested meets all the criteria set forth in the zoning ordinance authorizing the use. The granting of the special use permit will not alter the general characteristic of the surrounding area or impair the purpose or intent of the zoning ordinance. And with that said, we are going to flip the agenda tonight. We're going to hear the petition of NORPAC first, and that shouldn't take as long as what we might hear with the second petition. So the NORPAC folks are here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kelly Morris-Salvatore. I represent NORPAC, and as you said, Mr. Vice Chairman, we are here for a special use permit tonight. I'm just going to give a very brief introduction of the property.
You may proceed.
Thank you. So this is the application of NORPAC LLC. The current owner is Schneider Electric IT and America Corporation. Property is located at 132 Fairgrounds Road. It's Assessor's Plat 21-3, Lot 9. The zoning is Industrial 1. It's a 20-acre lot. The last legal record use of the property is machinery manufacturing. The proposed use is paper products manufacturing, and that's use code 73.1. Just to go over a couple of the special use permit criteria at the outset, the special use is specifically authorized by the ordinance, and that is at section 301, the use regulations table. And again, it's 73.1, that paper products manufacturing and printing use code. I also took a look at your comprehensive plan. The future land use map designates this property as being industrial. The economic development element of your comprehensive plan does support this use. It supports current business uses and light industrial uses, which I would characterize this as being a light industrial use. We'll go through the standards with the testimony tonight. And tonight with me, I have Jonathan Fox, who's a representative consultant of NORPAC. He will give a brief introduction and summary of NORPAC's business operations currently in New Jersey and their intention to open in Rhode Island. I'm also going to have Pedro Oliveira, who is a co-president, and he is the manager of plant facilities in New Jersey right now. He will discuss the operations. Then we have Paul Carlson, who's an engineer. He is the site engineer, and he's prepared a vehicle circulation plan for you to review. And finally, we have Paul Bannon from Beta Group. He is a traffic engineer, and we've prepared a traffic study, which I hope you all have a copy of. Thank you.
Before you continue,
Yes.
I want to have Jessica enter we have a number of documents in the application. Would you cite the documents that are part of the record, please, Jessica?
Sure. We have the application signed and dated April 13th, 2023. We have the owner authorization signed and notarized April 14th, 2023. We have a one-page floor plan. We have a one-page evacuation plan. We have a proposed site plan, which was prepared by Dowdell Engineering Associates. That was dated September 24th, 1993. We have a 200-foot radius map and a butters list. We have the legal notices. We have the proof of certified mailing and the notarized affidavit of mailing. We have a letter dated May 15th, 2023, requesting a continuation until the May 31st or June 21st hearing. Then we have the supplemental material, which is a vehicle maneuverability plan, one page, prepared by Insight Engineering Services, LLC, Paul D. Carlson, P.E., and dated May 24th, 2023. And then we have a 72-page traffic impact study prepared by Beta Inc. and dated May 22nd, 2023.
Thank you. Let me just point out that the special use permit is required under Section 301 and Section 907 of the South Kingstown Ordinance. The owner currently is Schneider Electric IT and America Corporation. The premises are located at 132 Fairgrounds Road in South Kingstown. That's Assessor's Map 21-3, Lot 9, and is zoned Industrial 1. You may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So first, I'd like to have Jonathan Fox come up and just give you a little introduction of NORPAC and its business operations.
Sure. Mr. Fox, please identify yourself for the record and spell your name.
My name is Jonathan Fox, first name Jonathan, last name Fox.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
You may proceed.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Jonathan Fox. I'm here tonight representing NORPAC and the owners of NORPAC, and it's my pleasure to introduce the company to you all, to explain a little bit about who we are and why we want to be here in South Kingstown. NORPAC is an independent, family-owned and operated manufacturer of high-quality paper food wrapping products. We're also a certified women-owned business, and were established back in 1952, originally as the Newark Paraffin Paper Company. The company has operated from its current Newark, New Jersey facility since its founding. I think it's important to recognize that NORPAC is not a manufacturer of paper pulp. We're not bringing a paper mill into the town, which might lead to potential significant odors or other sorts of issues, but rather NORPAC uses large rolls of paper as its main raw material, which it then converts to food-grade coated paper products, which are effectively prohibited from containing any toxic chemicals or foul odors. The company produces wax paper for use as wrap for deli meats, sandwiches, bakery goods, pizza box liners, etc. NORPAC's products include plain and printed wax-coated rolls and sheets, interfolded paper, and grease-resistant baking sheets. And the company has recently expanded into paper grocery bags. Due to some recent substantial growth, NORPAC has outgrown its Newark home after over 70 years, to the point where currently the company is storing as much as 40,000 square feet of raw material and finished goods in a related facility about 20 miles away. These capacity constraints are now limiting the company in its ability to pursue a number of new and exciting business opportunities with both existing and new customers. In fact, the company's current largest challenge is continuing to provide product and best-in-class service to its existing customers due to these capacity limitations. So we were thrilled to identify the former APC headquarters building at 132 Fairgrounds Road in West Kingston as NORPAC's prospective new home. Fitting out the site would provide NORPAC with a larger facility than it currently has, with far more efficient factory layout. This would ensure the company's ability to service its customers for years to come. In addition, it would provide more than adequate space to allow for future expansion as business opportunities arise. We've recently signed a purchase and sale agreement with Schneider Electric IT and are currently approaching about 2/3 of the way through a 75-day due diligence period to confirm the condition of the facility and its systems, together with the ability to use the facility for NORPAC's intended business purpose. We consider NORPAC to be a very good citizen and neighbor. The company currently employs between 50 and 60 people in Newark and expects to employ between 75 to 100 employees in West Kingston over the first 3 years after coming here. And as an aside, we're actually working together with the staff at Rhode Island Commerce to take advantage of certain jobs and development-related incentive programs. And as our experts will testify, the company would not significantly impact traffic, will not create any odors or material noise beyond the building's walls, aside from some potential normal HVAC activities. And even that won't go beyond the company's orders. In sum, we're very excited about the prospect of NORPAC relocating to West Kingston, and we look forward to establishing a long and mutually beneficial relationship with the town of South Kingstown. And I thank you very much.
Questions, Mr. Fox?
Oh, sure.
I'm sure you can talk about the manufacturing process somewhat.
We have others that could do a better job of that.
A couple of questions. Do you plan to take advantage of the rail service in the vicinity at all?
I would say that we certainly would hope to. The Kingston station is kind of diagonally across the street. Unfortunately, it's not on a commuter line, so I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I think there's some industrial spurs in that area, but just curious. So, how do you get your raw material? Trailer truck? What do you anticipate on this site?
The vast majority would come from trailer trucks.
How many vehicles would you say could you testify to in the course of a week, say?
Yeah, I think we're looking
I
at,
was going to say, Mr. Oliveira, I think, has all that information if you don't.
okay.
What was the answer, I'm sorry?
We have, Pedro Oliveira is going to be testifying to that and
Okay.
can give you better firsthand information.
The other question I have, waste generation. How much waste and what are you going to do with it?
I think, again, that would be for Mr.
Okay.
Oliveira.
All right, I'll hold on that. Any other board members for Mr. Fox?
I assume that somebody else would be able to answer this question. Is the energy use that's going to be there and the carbon footprint that you're going to create going to be any different than Schneider Electric or any previous business that was in that area?
I can't speak directly to the energy that was used by Schneider Electric, except to say that being familiar, reasonably familiar with the nature of their business and the nature of our business, I would expect we would be using substantially less power than they had ever used.
And what about the greenness of the manufacturing process? Somebody else can speak to that?
I think somebody else would probably be
Okay,
better.
I'll ask that later.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now to answer probably all of your questions, we're going to have Mr. Pedro Oliveira. We're going to share the mic.
Sure.
So,
State your name for the record and spell it, please.
My name is Pedro Oliveira, Pedro Oliveira.
Raise your right hand. You promise, you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
You may proceed.
thank you. And what is your position with the company, NORPAC?
I'm a co-president and manager at NORPAC,
Okay, and how long have you worked for NORPAC?
34 years,
And generally, what are your responsibilities on a day-to-day basis?
in charge of all operations at NORPAC.
Okay? And particularly the manufacturing facility area?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So, we asked you to determine whether there would be any increase in noise that may affect neighboring property owners. What were your findings? Did you find that there would be any noise outside of the building?
No.
And how did you determine that?
So I did some measurements in Newark, New Jersey, 5:30 in the morning before operations and 6:30 after the shift starting. And the noise level outside would be the same. It's the same noise level.
So in other words, there's no
No
noise
noise.
emanating from the facility at all?
No, and I did it between 25, 50 feet away from the building.
Okay. And where is it, could you describe generally where your facility in Newark is located? What is around it?
So we have the airport 5 minutes away, New Jersey Turnpike right next to us, incinerator right next to us, the trains going to New York constantly across the river. We have a river next to us. And of course, we have the airplanes flying right on top of us all the time.
So your measurements were high and, not high, but they were higher than they would be here, correct? Because of the, not because of what's going on inside, but what's happening outside?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. And also under review for this application is whether there will be any odor that may be released from the building. Can you explain whether there will be any odor?
No, it's wax. We don't have any problems with smell outside the building or inside. And the other thing will be the printing process, which is everything is water-based. We don't use any chemicals for printing. Everything it's water-based and it's food contact also, so we can't do anything with chemicals on the printing press.
And just addressing more of the standards in your ordinance, could you describe where the trash will be stored and located on the premises? If you want to point to the site plan?
So right now, we have on the north side of the building, I believe it's north side. Paul, correct me if I'm wrong. And we'll be in the same spot that is today. Yeah, this one. Yeah, but you can't see it. Doesn't work on the display. No. So, it's right towards the other side? Yeah, right there. Yeah,
Yeah, Jamie's pointing to it, right?
yes. So see the mouse? And there's a compactor right there, and that's where it's going to be.
There may be another one
Right next to it, so yes, also, yeah.
And what types of trash do you expect?
It's clean trash. It's waxed paper. Right now, some of the equipment goes directly from the machine to the compactor automatically. And it's enclosed, and then it goes to the, right next door to the incinerator. So it's clean trash. There's no smell or anything. It's clean. It's trimmed from the paper that we make for our customers.
And can you also just show where the loading dock, or describe where the loading will occur on site? And is
It's-
it existing where the APC did their loading?
Yeah, it's right on that, right there. Yeah, that loading dock, yes.
So same areas where?
Same areas, yes.
Okay. And then just to answer one of the questions, how many tractor vehicles do you expect to be delivering on a daily basis?
On a daily basis, we expect, right now, we're doing from 10 to 15 trucks a day between, small trucks, delivering raw material, customers picking up. It's 10, 15 trucks a day right now.
And I think that's it, but I don't know if you have any other questions.
I talk loud normally. Whether these are going to be small, you said small trucks.
Yeah, small trucks.
When you say customer, they're not the tractor trailer.
No, right, yes, that's correct.
And 10 or 15, but you would have deliveries from the bigger trucks?
Yes, we do. The paper rolls, the raw material, yeah, it's,
So a mix.
yes, will be those. You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Walls. Mr. Oliveira, no hazardous waste, is that what I heard your testimony?
That's correct.
And recyclable waste, you didn't mention whether
Yeah, we
any
do
of that waste
recycle, yeah,
is
we do
recycled.
recycle, all the paper rolls, they come with craft paper. We recycle that.
Okay. And most of your deliveries of raw material would be large rolls of paper? Is that
Yeah,
fair to assume?
Yes, and pallets of boxes and stuff like that.
Okay. Mr. Rosen?
You said you're going to incinerate the waste.
Right now, we do, it goes to incinerator.
Yeah, and you're going to do that in West Kingston, I assume.
I don't know yet. We need to address that. So I'm not familiar with that process over here, so we're going to have to learn that. Jonathan, I don't know if you know anything about it.
So you don't have an incinerator in place in that building?
No.
You currently incinerate at the
No.
facility next door, not
Yes.
yours.
Right, not,
It's a different
a
facility.
company comes and picks up the garbage,
Yeah.
the dumpsters, and they put it out, they go out the next door where they incinerate everything.
Next door in Newark, you're talking?
In Newark, yes. It's right next to
So a
us.
different facility, right?
And so you don't have any, those plans are not set as to whether you're going to incinerate in West Kingston or not.
That's correct.
And Mr. Chair and members of the board, I believe, and council can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the DEM would need to issue an air permit for any kind of waste generating or incinerating facility,
So this has to go through DEM?
if that's what they want to do. So, if the board is inclined to approve.
No.
That would be conditioned on any and all state permits, including a DEM air permit if necessary.
So I just want to ask him the question. You do not intend to incinerate on the premises.
That's correct.
You will find another facility
That's
to
correct.
dispose of your
Yes,
waste.
yes.
So it will not be on this property.
Okay. You are going to use water, though?
Not a lot.
Not a lot, but you mentioned that this is not going to be pulp, and you're not manufacturing your paper, you're bringing it in, so the amount of water that you're going to use is not that great.
Very little.
Okay. What about, you said the chemicals that you're going to be using are essentially just wax
Just wax.
for making wax paper. Are you making any other kinds of paper?
That's just wax.
Just wax?
Just wax to coat in the paper, yeah.
Okay.
That's the only,
That's all the questions I have.
Mr. Rose and Mr. Diamond, you have anything? Okay. Next,
thank you.
Ms. Hicks, did you have, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Pedro?
Two quick questions for you, if you don't mind. The first one is your hours of operation. Is this manufacturing process something that runs 24 hours because you don't shut down the machines, or do you start in the morning and at quitting time, turn everything off and go home?
This is what's going on right now. We start at 6 a.m., and we have two departments. They run two shifts. They go 10-hour shifts, so 6 to 4, 4 to 2 a.m. right now, but that might increase. But the plan is to keep only two shifts.
Okay.
So it's going to take 2-3 years to get there.
All right. And my second question has, again, to do with waste. Assuming that you formulate a plan to incinerate waste, will you also have waste that will need to be trucked away? That would not
Only
be-
trucked away.
Okay.
Only trucked away.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks.
And next, we have Paul Carlson, who will describe the vehicle circulation plan on site.
Good evening, Mr. Carlson.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Name,
Yes.
name and spell it, please.
Paul Carlson, Paulcarlson.
Raise your right hand. Promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
You may proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to qualify Mr. Carlson as an expert in site engineering. Could you just describe briefly your qualifications?
I've been a engineer for 32 years, professional engineer for 28 years in the state of Rhode Island.
Have you testified before this board?
Yes, I have.
And testified before many boards around the state?
Yes, I
Rhode
have.
Island? Okay.
Without objection, we qualify him as an expert.
So I'm just going to let you describe the plan, and if
Sure.
I have any questions, I'll ask you.
All right. Just very briefly, the site itself has 3 entrances located off Fairgrounds Road. Each of those located on both on the southeast side, the middle, and also on the northeast corner. This access is over 900 spaces within the site. As far as the vehicles, most of the employees will access through the parking located on the southerly and on the easterly side of the site. The vehicle tracking and the location of the 18-wheelers will be along the northerly property line, in which there are, as was mentioned, there is a loading dock in the northeast corner, and also in the middle section of the plant. If you don't mind flipping to that next plan. Basically, the plan just indicates utilizing a WB 53 tractor trailer and its maneuvering throughout the site. We would use, again, that northerly section that would come in, come back into that first loading dock, and then also maneuver without any obstructions through the middle of the property to the middle loading dock, and then ultimately exit through those same turning movements. So we have no issues with any of the vehicles that will maneuver through this site.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just have him address some of the standards for your
Yes, please.
approval. Is the ingress and egress to the lot and to existing structures satisfactory from a civil engineering perspective?
Yes, it is.
And is there adequate automotive and pedestrian safety and convenience provided on this site, in your professional opinion?
Yes,
Is there adequate access for public safety vehicles to the site, in your opinion?
yes,
And is there adequate parking and loading areas provided on the site, in your professional opinion?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
How many parking, I know it's in here somewhere, but
I don't know the exact number, but it's between 900 and 1,000 spaces.
with 100 employees, I guess
I
that's
think there'd be plenty.
adequate.
Yes.
Board members, any questions for Mr. Carlson?
Um,
6 to 4. Yes. Correct. In my estimation, no. No impact. Correct.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Carlson.
And our last witness is Mr. Paul Bannon.
For the record, Paul Bannon, Paul Bannon.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
You may proceed.
And Mr. Bannon, or Mr. Chairman, I'd like to qualify Mr. Bannon as an expert in traffic engineering. Could you describe your qualifications briefly?
1982 graduate, University of Rhode Island, Bachelor of Science in Civil and Environmental Engineering. I've been employed as a civil traffic engineer in the last 39 years in the state of Rhode Island, working for several traffic and transportation engineering firms. I've testified in over 40 communities in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, and in Superior Court in Rhode Island and Massachusetts as a traffic expert.
Without objection, we will qualify you as an expert.
Thank you. Yes, we were retained, excuse me, we were retained by NORPAC to conduct a traffic study as part of the development process to determine if safe and adequate access can be provided to the property. As part of that effort, we conducted a review of the project area, assessing the horizontal and vertical geometry of the roadway and site distances at the driveways. We inventoried the project area for land use, what's adjacent to the property, and we conducted a traffic counting program for 7 days along the roadway to determine the type and volume of traffic and speeds of traffic along the road. We obtained crash data from the local police department to determine if there are any safety concerns in this immediate area. And then we estimated the amount of traffic to be generated by this use using IT trip generation methods and also operational data as presented by the owner to determine what we can actually expect for this project. Just briefly, that's the scope of what we did. We're reusing an existing 280+ thousand square foot building that used to employ over 900 people. We're looking at a much less intense use, 100 people that'll be entering and exiting the site off-peak per se, 54 in the first shift, I believe 40 in the afternoon shift. So in the morning, everybody will be coming in by 6 o'clock, those 54 people. And then in the afternoon shift, you'll have that enter-exit of the 94 people. And then that last shift, they'll leave at 11 p.m. when no one's on the road. The roadway itself is a low-volume roadway. It services roughly 1,600 vehicles per day. During the peaks, in the morning, it's 135. In the afternoon, it's 175. So it's a very low-volume roadway. Relative to site distances and safety, there are no sightline restrictions at either driveway, well in excess of 800 feet. So safe access and egress to the property can be provided. There were no safety issues relative to crash data. So we feel with the less intense use, the available driveways that we're not altering, that safe and adequate access can be provided to the development.
Just to address some of the special use permit standards, is the ingress and egress to the lot and to existing structures satisfactory?
Yes.
Is adequate traffic flow and control on and around the site?
Yes, the driveways are positioned on either side of the building that allow direct access to the parking lots, and the truck access is on one side of the building, separate from that employee parking and interaction area.
And does the design of the access and on-site circulation patterns provide a level of traffic safety and efficiency on the adjacent roadways?
Yes, everything's fenced off on the property. It is an industrial-type area. Arnold Lumber is like the major player along that stretch of road, so that's a different business, but it's an industrial area with low, pedestrian activity.
And I think you testified to this, but to be specific, do the site driveway intersections provide a sufficient site distance?
Yes, as
And
testified to.
just generally, is there any impact of traffic issues in and around this area?
Now, based on the low volumes of traffic on the main road and the less intensive use as proposed, we feel there are no operational capacity issues that will be realized.
Thank you.
Questions, board?
When Schneider Electric was there and previous owners were there, driving on 138 when employees got out, there's a signal there.
Yes.
On Fairgrounds and 138. Oftentimes there was a traffic jam at that particular juncture. But I believe that Schneider Electric had more employees than you're planning on having coming out in the shed.
About 10 times.
You're right, right. So the problems that might arise there are probably not going to arise.
No.
Yeah.
Not
Okay,
at all.
thank you.
In terms of exterior, lighting, is there going to be any change proposed in terms of uplighting or site lighting?
I'm not sure of, they're in the due diligence phase, so I'm not sure the overall upgrade of the facility that's being proposed, but I'm sure there was adequate lighting for the property to begin with, but I'm sure it needs to be updated because of how old the facility is in certain areas. But that will be looked at.
If I can add, we would certainly comply with any requirements of the zoning ordinance, including dark sky compliant, or we would definitely review the zoning ordinance and be sure to comply with any specific standards.
Makes sense. I just think that's something that should be considered. Yep.
Yep.
I just agree with Mr. Rosen. I think it's less of an impact, but that intersection with 138 is very narrow.
Yes, it's a two-lane road. They recently upgraded it with the protected left turn, so it operates more efficiently than it did at the time when
Somewhat more efficiently, but I understand that you have
Yeah.
less
much less traffic.
traffic
Yes.
flow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that completes our presentation. I'll provide comments if there's any public comment after.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very much, Ms. Salvatore. Board members? Mr. Rosen?
I have a question for Amy. Do we allow 10-hour shifts in this state?
Hey, I'm here as a land use expert, definitely not a labor law expert. The answer is, I think so, I'm not sure, but, I think that is going slightly far afield of the board's jurisdiction.
No, I understand that. But this is, as you well know, a labor state. with strong labor unions, probably the strongest, maybe next to New Jersey. I did have one question then. Does NORPAC have labor unions?
Yes, the employees are under a labor agreement, so,
Oh.
again, the company will comply with any employment or labor laws.
I would hope so. Okay, thank you. That would be my only objection, Mr. Chairman. I had some other objections if they were going to be using pulp and all that type of stuff, but since they're going to bring the paper in on rolls, which is perfectly fine, it's going to make a much more efficient operation, I assume. I did have one question, though, that just popped into my head, and now it's popped back out again, unfortunately. Maybe it'll come back to me. Okay. Come back to me.
I think the testimony supports that it's a clean business. I think they meet the criteria for special use permit. There's no changes to the building. It's 100 more employees that we'll have employed here in South Kingstown, which certainly will help our economy. And it's always great to welcome a new business with 100 employees to South Kingstown. So I have no objection to the request for a special use permit. Ms. Hicks, do you have anything?
It's great that we've got a company that's willing to come up relatively clean. I hope they look into recycling more or push the technology in this new plant, but I think it's a great addition to South
Okay,
Kingston.
with that said, would some,
I remembered my question.
okay, Mr. Rose.
Is the New Jersey operation going out of business, or is it going to remain the headquarters?
So not right away, but there's going to be a transition completely to Rhode Island because it better accommodates their growing business.
Good.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want to be sure that you opened up public comment before you take a vote. Just,
Thank you very much for reminding me. Anyone here that wishes to speak in favor or opposed to this application? Hearing none, board member or someone like to make a motion on this special use permit?
I guess I will.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen.
I make a motion to approve the petition of NORPAC. The description was read into the record by the chairman. The following individuals spoke on behalf of NORPAC: Kelly Salvatore, who's the lawyer; Jonathan Fox, who represented NORPAC; Pedro Oliveras, who's the co-president and manager of operations in Newark, and I presume will be associated with the operations here in West Kingston; Paul Carlson, who's a Rhode Island engineer; and Paul Bannon, who was a Rhode Island traffic engineer as well. There was no opposition or support for this petition from the audience. Ms. Spence read into the record the materials that we have on record now, and as a result, I will offer a motion to approve the petition as presented. The board finds that the special use is specifically authorized by the ordinance because it's going to be in an industrial area and seems to be a worthwhile endeavor for the town of South Kingstown to go forward. The board finds that the special use meets all the criteria set forth in the subsection of this ordinance authorizing such special use, as presented by Ms. Salvatore. the ordinances that were involved, and as I remember, the chairman specified, one of them was 907. I don't remember what the other one was. 3-something. The specific numbers of the ordinances. 301 and 907.
907.
Right, okay. The board finds that the granting of the special use permit will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of this ordinance or the comprehensive plan of the town. In so doing, the board has considered whether or not satisfactory provisions and arrangements have been or will be made concerning, but not limited to, the following matters where applicable: ingress and egress to the lot and to existing or proposed structures thereon, with particular reference to automotive and pedestrian safety and convenience, traffic flow and control, and access in case of fire, emergency, and catastrophe. This was presented by Mr. Bannon and seems to be meet all the criterion. The plat that is presently there is not going to be changed in any regard. There is plenty of parking, which I will get to in a minute. There is 3 areas for ingress and egress. The number of employees that are going to be at the plant during the day is approximately 100, and those 3 ingresses and egresses are certainly going to be able to handle the traffic, as well as the corner at 138 and Fairgrounds Road has been revamped as indicated by Mr. Bannon, and should not be a traffic problem. Off-street parking and loading areas where required, with particular attention to the items of subsection A1 from the above ordinance, and the noise, glare, and odor effects of the special use permit on adjoining lots have apparently been met by the Mr. Carlson's testimony as such. Trash storage and delivery areas with a particular reference to the items in 1 and 2 above have also been met as specified by Mr. Carlson. Utilities with reference to locations, availability, and compatibility are already present in this structure. Screening and buffering with reference to type, dimensions, and character have also been met. Signs, if any. Did we talk about signs? Are there going to be any signs?
So they're still in their due diligence period. They have not designed any signs, but again, we will comply with any zoning requirements, and if we don't, we will be back to see you.
Okay. Signs, if any, and exterior lighting with reference to glare, traffic safety, and compatibility and harmony with lots in the zoning area. I noted that Ms. Salvatore indicated about the lighting as such, and they'll meet the requirements associated with the ordinance. Required yards and other open space. There's plenty of open space there, and yards. There's enough space. I've been to the facility, and there's enough space for incoming traffic and outgoing traffic to be going on at exactly the same time, as a matter of fact. And general compatibility with lots in same and or abutting zoning districts have also been met. In my cheat notes, it says discuss items as applicable, and I can't think of any others. So I move approval of this petition.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen. Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Walsh. Any further discussion? If none, Mr. Rosen.
Aye.
Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
Ms. Hicks.
Aye.
Mr. Diamond.
Aye.
Mr. Daniels. Aye. Good luck. Welcome to Rhode Island.
Thank you. 50 minutes, not too bad.
All right, we're ready to call the next petition. This is the petition of Matunic Market LLC, 629 Succotash Road, Wakefield, Rhode Island. Special use permit under the zoning ordinance as follows. The applicant is seeking to establish a 147-seat restaurant with alcohol, use code 56.1, within the existing structure on the premises. The lot size is .91 acre. A special use permit is required per the ordinance, Section 301 and Section 907, Standards of Relief. The owner is Matunic Market LLC for the premises located at 151 Old Tower Hill Road, South Kingstown, Assessor's Map 57-2, Lot 51, and is zoned commercial highway. Jessica, would you read the documentation into the record?
We have an application with cover letter signed and dated April 13th, 2023. We have the owner authorization signed and notarized April 13th, 2023. We have Exhibit A, which is 2 pages. We have a boundary survey and existing conditions plan, 1 page, that was prepared by National Surveyors Developers, Inc., and stamped by Norbert A. Tieran and dated August 22nd, 2019. We have a schematic design, which is pages A, A1, E option, and C option, prepared by Spring Street Studio and dated April 13th, 2023. We have supplemental material, which consists of a comprehensive plan and zoning project review. That is 16 pages, prepared by Paige R. Bronk, AICP, and dated May 5th, 2023. We have a 5-page traffic assessment prepared by VHB and Robert Clinton, PE, dated May 5th, 2023. We have a 200-foot radius map and a butters list. We have the legal notices. We have the proof of certified mailings and notarized affidavit of mailing. We have an email dated May 17th, 2023, requesting a continuation until either the May 31st or June 21st hearing. And then we have the following correspondence. Paul and Ginny Kenny, 57 Narragansett Avenue. We have a neighborhood petition with photos. We have a correspondence from Alan and Melissa Towell, 73 Narragansett Avenue West. Lois and Carl Towell, who are the former owners of 73 Narragansett Avenue West. Casey Abidi, Narragansett Avenue West. And Martha Carr, who's a neighbor.
Thank you, Jessica. And you are?
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Noonan. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Adler, Pollack, and Sheehan, and I represent Matunic Market LLC in regards to this petition in front of you this evening.
You may proceed.
Thank you so much. With me this evening is Perry Rasso, who is the principal of the Matunic Market, of the same Matunic Oyster Bar and Restaurant, as well as Paige Bronk, who is a planner whose report has been submitted, and Robert Clinton from VHB, a traffic engineer. So I'll do, like Ms. Salvatore before me, a brief introduction, and then I'll move on to them. We are here looking for a special use permit just for the restaurant portion. A restaurant is an allowed use in this zone, which is commercial highway. However, with alcohol service, it requires a special use permit. So a portion of the existing building, which had been the Feet First Plaza, if you will be the 147-seat restaurant. The other portion will be a market, which is allowed retail by right. So the property at 151 Old Tower Hill Road was purchased by Matunic Market, Mr. Rasso, last year, and we're here seeking relief for that. In terms of the operations, Mr. Rasso can address some of those, but I want the board to know, obviously, we have correspondence from people, some in the radius, some outside. Mr. Rasso met with many of the neighbors on May 13th, and a lot of issues came up, some of which we'll discuss. I think traffic is one of the key ones. So I'm going to start with Mr. Bronk's testimony. He'll give you sort of an overview of the comprehensive plan, the zoning analysis, the whole thing. And then we'll have Mr. Clinton speak about the traffic. So I think that's the number one, is the traffic flow and parking for the neighbors. And Mr. Rasso has proposed that he will install a gate at the rear of the property that will be closed during the hours, maybe 9:30 to 6 a.m. That's his proposal as part of your power to condition the special use permit. Other concerns were about lighting on the property. Again, everything will be compliant with your regulations, but also in specific to make sure that no lights are shining on any residences, that they're motion detector lights for safety purposes after the operation. Had a request that the rear of the building not be painted white so as to prevent any glare, and that will be an appropriate color. And then some issues about, some outside refrigeration and poison-free rodent control. So those were all issues that came up at the meeting, and that Mr. Rasso has agreed to essentially what the neighbors had asked to, and so that just leaves the traffic issue. So in regards to the project overall, I think I'd like to Mr. Bronk to come up and testify. What I do want you to know also in terms of parking, we have the required parking. We're not looking for any dimensional relief. We're going to stay with the same footprint that we have out there now, which is, is an older building, so it'll be rehabbed, it'll look nicer, but we're not expanding on the footprint. There's 58 parking spaces existing out there. We need 55 for the combination of the retail and the restaurant use, so we meet the parking. And Mr. Rasso is proposing off-site employee parking. Just to be clear on the use code that we're looking for, again, the restaurant is 56.1 is the use code that we're seeking relief under, so. Paige? So this is Mr. Bronk's report on the zoning analysis. If you can introduce yourself to the board and give your qualifications, please.
Sure. My name is Paige Bronk.
Spell your name for the record, please.
P-A-I-G-E-B-R-O-N-K.
Promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed.
Thank you.
You want to qualify him?
Yeah, I would like to qualify him as a certified planner, so Paige, if you can just give some of your background, please.
Sure. I have about 30 years of planning and development experience, multiple states, about 15 years here in Rhode Island, also Savannah, Georgia, Frankfort, Kentucky. I've worked in the city of Newport as a planning and zoning director, currently working in Groton, Connecticut.
And do you have a certification as a planner?
I do. I do. AICP, American Institute of Certified Planners, 1996. Thank you.
And you've testified before different planning and zoning boards in the state of Rhode Island and other places?
I have, yes.
Mr. Chair, to qualify him as a certified.
Without objection, Mr. Bronk, we qualify you as an expert witness, and you may proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Bronk, if you can just tell the board what I asked you to do and how you evaluated this project.
Sure. I was hired to basically review the project, the site, the plans, in particular, the South Kingstown Comprehensive Plan and the zoning ordinance to basically review this requested special use permit and try to match for consistency with the comp plan and also zoning.
And did you, as a result of that, prepare a report that was earlier identified by the clerk of the board dated May 5th, 2023?
Yes.
And does that state your opinions as a planner?
Yes.
If you could just go through and sort of walk us through that report.
Sure. I've extracted some highlights from the report to provide to you tonight. We've already covered the property. The property is about almost an acre in size. The existing property is a commercial land use. It also has commercial zoning. It's surrounded by commercial properties on both sides and also fronting Old Tower Hill Road, across the street from the Wakefield Mall. To the rear, there are some abutting residential properties. The direct abutters are within a commercial zone. There are residential properties further behind that in a residential property. The first noticeable element in arriving at the site is that the property is vacant, and it has been vacant for a while. Clearly, it was developed decades ago, and it does not appear that there have been significant upgrades over time. I don't know the exact vintage, but I would say that the property was probably developed somewhere in the 70s, in that era. Just diving into the comprehensive plan, overall, the comprehensive plan definitely supports this type of development at this location. As you're aware, the comprehensive plan places a high emphasis on villages within South Kingstown. That's for two reasons: to try to concentrate development where there are existing commercial land uses and commercial zoning, but also, in doing so, to protect the areas that are intended for less intensity. So basically, it's a growth strategy to try to promote development within these villages. This clearly is a village. This is in Wakefield. There are three elements that really jumped out that I'd like to, they're addressed in my report, but I would like to pick on some highlights within the land use element, also the economic development element, and also the climate change element. Regarding the land use element, three main components: existing land use map, future land use map, and also the zoning map, all significantly point towards this property as being an intended commercial use and also for redevelopment. Map 3, the existing land use map, classifies this, the land use, as commercial. Map 4, the future land use map, designates this property as highway commercial, commercial highway. As should be, the future land use map is supposed to align with the zoning. The zoning also aligns it as commercial highway. The land use element further describes this commercial highway zoning and its relationship to land use. This is a quote from the comprehensive plan. The CH zone is categorized as commercial highway on the future land use map with a purpose to permit and encourage revitalization and intensification so that the areas within the district are used to their peak potential. And it further describes how this particular area is often consisting of freestanding commercial development oriented towards the automobile with extensive off-street parking and direct access to major highways. The predominant development pattern is the shopping center within this zone. Allowable uses are retail, gas stations, fast food establishments, and larger supermarkets, as well as repair businesses, open lot sales, wholesale business, and storage. Again, that's right from the comprehensive plan describing the commercial highway area. A couple select goals from that land use element. Goal 2 in the report basically says a sustainable rate of development will be maintained, which is consistent with the ability of the town to provide essential services, to achieve a stable tax rate, to protect environmental, historic, cultural resources, and to provide a healthy environment. Furthermore, one other goal, the integrity of the town's villages will be intact, and the village-centric approach to development, which recognizes each village's unique objectives, will be strengthened. So overall, the land use element clearly supports commercial development in key locations, particularly in this particular Wakefield location.
Just a quick question. In terms of this specific property, the fact that we're using the same building, does that factor in at all in sort of your analysis?
Definitely. Adaptive reuse is basically a best practice in the planning profession, also from an economic development standpoint. And the comprehensive plan emphasizes that redevelopment is important. They talk about efficient use of properties, infrastructure, public transit, pedestrian access. They want it all centrally located. They want existing buildings to be maximized, including their uses. So infill and adaptive reuse is definitely a part of that.
Is the next section you wanted to discuss? Or?
Yes, if I could just touch on the two other elements, economic development element. The overall vision from that is that appropriate commercial development in the village area is of a scale and mass with architectural design and site planning that creates visual interest activates the streetscape, and encourages walking, biking, and transit use. There are a couple goals, actually 3. Goal 3 deals with, again, development within the villages. Goal 1, the local economy will provide opportunities for a diverse collection of business and industry. Furthermore, there's a policy that supports that goal, dealing with supporting local business and providing goods and services to residents and visitors to the community. Goal 6, business models that help to define South Kingstown's unique character in history will be identified and fostered, given that this is a coastal environment. We're talking about agricultural sales, aquaculture sales, and the tourism. I definitely think that pertains. And then there are a couple supporting policies to that, Policy 6.1 and Policy 6.2, that do further talk about the agricultural and the local farmers, the ability to sell products, and also Policy 6.3, tourism. The last element, the natural hazards and climate change element, that is a unique element because it does directly pertain to this. Goal 2, it talks about carbon emissions and reducing those within the municipality. Furthermore, Policy 2.2 explicitly talks about infill development and how infill development is encouraged as a way to reduce that carbon footprint.
So is it your opinion that the proposed use, and specifically the special use permit, is consistent with the South Kingston Comprehensive Plan?
Yes.
All right. And now turning specifically to the special use permit requirements under Section 907, did you do an analysis of the zoning? I know you've mentioned that it's commercial highway, but can you dig a little more into that and then address the special use permit criteria?
Yes. Within the comprehensive plan, there is an extensive description regarding that commercial highway use. It's actually a couple paragraphs long. I won't read the whole thing. It's within my report, but in short, it does talk about this being an intensive use. That is what is planned. Fast food establishments, gas stations, supermarkets, wholesale business, storage, etc. It clearly is one of the most intensive commercial uses that South Kingstown intends.
If I might, I just would refer, for anyone who's looking at it, page 11 of your report, the first full paragraph talks about there are a significant number of allowed commercial uses, and he goes through and you discuss each of them, if anyone wanted to look at it more specifically.
Right. Within that description, it also states, in the last line of the description, it says residential development is excluded from these areas. Of course, that means new residential development. It does not mean existing residential land uses, but this zone is not intended to be a residential land use. So the district encourages redevelopment and the concentration of activities within this zone. And given the long listing of allowable uses, this particular request specific to a restaurant with alcohol is a much better fit, in particular with an adaptive reuse scenario that we're dealing with than many of the other uses that are allowed within the zone. The report did identify the standards that you use to review and grant special use permits, and I did make some comments on each of those, and I brought out some highlights. So you have standards A, B, C, and then C, there's subsections 1 through 8 where it's relevant. Regarding standard A, regarding is the land use allowed by zoning, the proposed land use, being the restaurant with the alcohol, is definitely and specifically authorized by the South Kingstown zoning ordinance. That's section 301, your schedule of use regulations table for the commercial highway district. I should note as well that restaurants without alcohol allowed by right. It's the provision of the request for the alcohol that's triggering the special use permit.
One quick question before you testify. Mr. Clinton, who's a traffic engineer, has not yet testified this evening, but are you familiar with his report?
Yes,
And did you in fact meet and talk with him and use his report as part of your analysis?
yes.
All right.
Criteria B, that the special use meets the criteria set forth in the subsection authorizing such use. Actually, there is no specific detail in the zoning ordinance dealing with the alcohol component of a restaurant. However, I think it's important to note that this is a redevelopment project and that the existing building would basically, that footprint will remain. It won't be expanded, the property will be improved, and it'll basically operate within the existing envelope of what you see with the building and also the existing property. Criteria C, that the granting of the special use permit will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of this ordinance or the comprehensive plan of the town. And then there are 8 subsections. Basically, the granting of the special use permit will not alter the general characteristics of the surrounding area or impair the intent of the zoning ordinance or the comprehensive land use plan. As I said before, this area is a commercial corridor. It's been designated that way by the town. What I haven't mentioned in the past is the town's actually made significant infrastructure upgrades in that area with bikeway, sidewalk, rain gardens, roadway reconfiguration. It clearly is an area for investment and commercial use. There are numerous commercial establishments in this area that exist today, and that the zoning for this property is commercial highway, and the community plan, the comprehensive community plan, strategically prescribes the concentration of business uses at that given location. Also notable that it's within about a quarter mile or so of Route 1 and across the street from the Wakefield Mall. So clearly, this is an area of commercial intensity. Lastly, on that point, the operation of this business will be professionally run by someone who has experience in that field. It will not harm the area or the neighborhood, and also convert, as we've said, a vacant commercial center back into a more high-quality enterprise. Regarding ingress and egress, I know that will be addressed by the traffic engineer in more detail, but it will remain basically as is today. And the property has primary access on Old Tower Hill Road, but also has secondary access to the rear on West Narragansett. In terms of existing off-street parking, it will not be changed from what exists today. That parking arrangement or orientation has existed for years with prior retail uses, and it will continue. The parking is primarily to the front of the existing building. That building is kind of L-shaped. That's where most of the parking will occur. There is parking to the rear as well. In terms of buffering, there is existing buffering between that building and the abutting uses. There's a significant wall to the rear. So there's the building, there's an alley, and then there's a high vertical wall with landscaping on the top. In addition, there will be some additional improvements made to the landscaping.
Just based on the map, or rather the building outline that's up on the screen, the front area, you see the L shape, and then in front of that, that's where the parking is, correct?
Yes.
All right. And then there's, to the right, there's the access that goes then to the rear portion of the lot?
Yes.
Right. And then behind the building is where that alleyway you're talking about, is that correct?
That's correct. The access way.
There we go.
Oh, there we
Okay.
go.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah, basically, you can see through that image right now, the access way goes straight through, and then there's the alley directly behind the building. And then you can see the edge between the alley and the hedges or the landscaping. That's basically the screening and the buffer between that property and the abutting property.
And that abutting property, although residential, is zoned commercial highway also?
That's correct.
And then there's a height difference between that property and the building below?
There is a height difference, yes.
Thanks.
Regarding trash storage and deliveries, they'll be properly managed without impact to the abutters in the neighborhood. As we just said, there's an alley, and that's on the southern side of the building, and the high retaining wall. Trash removal will be addressed at that alley location with regular pickup. There will not be any nuisance issues, odor, or litter. In terms of outdoor storage, most of the storage will be within the building with the exception of outdoor refrigeration units. And I'm sure if there are questions on that, Mr. Rasso could answer. Deliveries will be made and scheduled so that there's minimal impact to the roadways in the neighborhood. Regarding utilities, the property is already served by the utilities it needs. That includes water and sewer, obviously within the commercial corridor. It's not anticipated there'll be any additional utilities. However, the applicant did note that they are intending on installing solar panels on the roof to reduce the carbon footprint. That's also in alignment with the comprehensive plan. The existing building and property have adequate screening and buffering. As I said, that it's L-shaped. It's well situated with the parking to the front. The building actually serves as a barrier between the state roadway and the rear residential properties. Right now, that building has a flat roof, and the intent is to actually put a peaked roof on, which will further provide screening.
Jamie, do you have any of the elevations you could put up? Just looking at the architectural plans that were submitted as part of the application, is that what you're referring to in terms of a change in the roof line?
Definitely. Yeah, right now, the entire roof line is just flat. So there are significant changes in the elevation with peaked roof, other architectural features to try to visually alter that, but also it'll have significant screening and buffering benefits. And then in terms of signage, quite simply, it'll comply with the South Kingstown sign requirements. There will not be any glare. There will not be any traffic safety issues as a result. Another subsection criteria, yard and other open space. As stated, the property will be used as it's configured today. There is no requirement for adding additional yards or open space. However, there is a general desire to try to beautify the property, try to improve its overall aesthetics, where possible, existing landscaping. There is significant impervious surface, and I think the applicant is trying where the applicant can try to address minimize the amount of impervious surface, but at the same time, it's important to retain the parking on site. Overall, the project is definitely compatible with the commercial highway zoning. Given the surroundings, restaurants with alcohol, automobile services and offices, and the properties abutting this property within the commercial highway zone do hold residential land use, but they are legal non-conforming uses as a result. In short, I would just say the project I found is consistent with the zoning, land use, and the standards for special use permit.
Quick question, in terms of the references you've made to how the property is going to operate, in addition to speaking with Mr. Clinton, did you have opportunity to visit the site and to speak with Mr. Rasso?
Yes, I've done both.
Okay, and on several occasions?
Yes.
Okay. And the opinion that you just gave, that the proposal is consistent with the comp plan and the zoning ordinance, is that set forth on page 15 of your report?
It is.
And there is, and I'm sure you're aware, some issues with or concern with the residential uses behind. And I think you've explained to at least to some extent that the building provides some protection and shield. Any other thoughts as a planner on sort of when these two uses bump up against one another?
I think it's common in, suburban areas where these properties come up to one another. I think that meeting with the abutters is the right thing to do. Try to find out what would really help them. And my understanding is there were discussions regarding how to minimize deliveries, impacts from deliveries, how to deal with noise, questions about parking. How are we going to ensure that an abutting residential land use is not detrimentally impacted? Hours of operation is another, and I think those are the items that have been considered from the beginning and also are ongoing with discussions with neighbors.
I have no further questions from people.
Thank you. Mr. Bronk, just a couple questions. Are you qualified to testify as to any excess runoff as a result of the reconfiguration of the roof?
I am not an engineer. I'm generally familiar with stormwater, but I'm definitely not an engineer.
Do you have anyone here this evening that can
No,
testify to that?
not specifically on it. As a redevelopment project, I believe it's under an acre, so I don't think it needs to be reviewed by DEM, but I'm sure as part of the building permit process that they'll probably have to go through that with engineers. I don't know, Jamie, if you can speak to that, but the intention is to, and I believe the law requires, that they not shed any water onto anybody else's land. And so I think there's already some infiltration systems, if I recall correctly, on the property, and so any development will handle that. And
Well,
Harry can maybe talk
My
about that.
question is directed to any increase from what exists on the existing building, because you're changing the roof lines considerably.
Any runoff will be handled on site. Okay, so that will be.
Mr. Gorman?
I was just going to say, Mr. Chairman, if there's an increase of an impervious, which in this case I think there's a few overhangs, but it's the same footprint. So as long as they're not directing it or redirecting the runoff onto abutting properties, it should be compliant, but the town engineer will review it at that time.
Thank you. Questions, board members? Anything in Mr. Bronk's testimony you wish to expound on or question? Okay, we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to, is this yours? Or someone else? If you have Mr. Clinton as my next witness.
Mr. Clinton, identify yourself and please spell your name for the record.
Okay, my name is Robert Clinton, ROBERTCLINTON.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to seek to qualify Mr. Clinton as a traffic engineer. So, Bob, if you could just give some of your credentials, background, and experience in testifying.
Yeah, I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, graduated in 1986, been practicing traffic transportation, also highway design in my earlier years, but a strong concentration in traffic engineering. I've worked on major projects for the Rhode Island Department of Transportation, Pell Bridge, Providence Viaduct, Henderson, also land development projects.
And have you testified before boards similar to the South Kingston?
Yes, I have.
Okay, without objection, we'll qualify Mr. Clinton as an expert.
Thank you so much. Mr. Clinton, can you just describe to the board what you were asked to do in regards to this project and your approach and handling it?
Yeah, I was asked to perform a traffic assessment of the proposed use, also comparing it with just backfilling the existing building, which they could do without any permits, I believe.
And so your report that's dated May 5th, that's part of the record, did you first start out looking at the existing conditions of the property?
Yes, the site's currently vacant, but as I said, the site could be reoccupied by another use. It was previously a shoe store and also a gift shop, Zero Wampum.
And so what did you do to sort of analyze the, if anything, to analyze the traffic for that compared to the proposed use?
Yeah, I looked at the instituted, the ITE trip generation manual, and that's an industry standard which is used for different types of uses. Comparing if the site were just reoccupied with the proposed two uses on the site, and the trip generation of those two were pretty comparable. So we don't really see from a traffic trip generation standpoint a major change of this proposal versus reoccupying the existing building.
And you mentioned that you used the ITE, so for the proposed use, what type of analysis did you do for that?
Yeah, we looked at two different trip generation methods. We used a fine dining restaurant and a supermarket. Obviously, this is not a supermarket. A supermarket is more intense use. You have higher trip generation. But just to be conservative on our analysis, looking at the worst case scenario, how much the site could generate, and exiting traffic, that's the most critical volume at a site. We only saw like a three vehicle increase from just reoccupying the existing building.
And then in terms of, on both you have the entrances on Old Tower Hill Road and Narragansett West, did you look at, the traffic and the ability to make turn maneuvers out of the site onto Old Tower Hill Road?
Yeah, Old Tower Hill Road, the access located at that spot, the existing traffic signal actually creates some gaps, when you have this signal operating. And actually, the eastbound Tower Hill Road traffic has an advance signal phase, so that phase clears out first, and then the westbound traffic goes. So after that phase clears out, the queue, vehicles can come in and out of that access pretty easily.
And do you see, as a traffic engineer, any issues or concerns with the site and people making turning maneuvers either on Tower Hill Road or on Narragansett West?
No, it operated previously, and actually the signal creates those gaps.
And in your report, I guess on the last page, you indicate that there might be some delays exiting the driveway during certain peak periods. But again, do you think that these gaps that you talked about would allow people to safely enter and exit the property?
Yeah, the proximity to the existing traffic signals is actually a benefit to the site. And as Paige stole a lot of my thunder and stuff, they have done recent improvements along the roadway, and it is a benefit to the community.
Okay. And specifically to the standards that Paige addressed, I'm going to ask just Mr. Clinton a few of those questions. One of the items, item C1, says ingress and egress to the lot into existing or proposed structures with particular reference to automotive and pedestrian safety, convenience, traffic flow and control, and access in case of fire, emergency, or catastrophe. Do you think that the plan as proposed is safe for pedestrians, for traffic flows, and for emergencies?
Yes, it's been designed very well.
And in terms of off-street loading and parking, as a traffic engineer, do you have any concerns with the internal circulation as proposed?
No, I don't.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for Mr. Clinton.
Any questions? Mr. Rosen?
say it as if, anyway. You did your study when?
Yeah, that's an important part. The traffic characteristics are greatly impacted by the summer traffic, and
Correct.
and so the trip generation is based on the peak AM and PM hours of traffic.
Which is?
Well, the restaurant doesn't generate much traffic during the morning peak. Its peak is in the afternoon, that 4 to 6 period, and it's based on the peak time of trip generation.
Well, this is a restaurant with, proposed to have alcohol. Presumably, people who drink alcohol stay a little bit later than 6 p.m.,
Correct.
Particularly in the summer.
Yeah, but there are two peaks. There's the peak of the restaurant, and then there's the peak of the adjacent roadway. Obviously, the adjacent street traffic drops off after, in the evening, after that peak, that 4 to 6 period. So even though the volumes of traffic at the site may be slightly higher in those later evening hours, like you mentioned, the adjacent roadway volumes are lower during that time period and can accommodate the traffic. So the worst combination of the site traffic and the adjacent street traffic are in that 4 to 6 period.
Okay. What about the market?
Yeah, again, that 4 to 6 period is the peak for the market too. So and a lot of the trip generation is passed by, and you have some diverted trips too. So all of these trips aren't new trips to the roadway. So some of those people are going to be traveling past the site, going to and from work, and they'll make a stop in. So a lot of the trip generation that what I mentioned is not new traffic to the roadway.
Ms. Noonan, correct. Have the hours for operation been decided?
They haven't been formalized, but I think my notes here to make them right. I believe the market was to be opened at about 8:30 till 7 p.m., and then the restaurant would open maybe 11 with its latest hours till midnight on the weekends, which is consistent with what the Chop House Grill does.
11 a.m.?
11 a.m., yeah.
Till what?
Till 12 a.m. at the latest on the weekends.
Midnight.
Midnight, yes. Like I said, that's the Chop House down the street. They go till midnight, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. So I don't know whether he'll be going till midnight on a Monday, but that's the, and realize too, obviously we're here for the special use permit from you. The liquor license is a separate hearing in front of the city council, obviously too, so.
One other question. Is Mr. Rasso going to appear before us?
He's here, he's available for any questions you may have, or, yeah.
Mr. Clinton, I just curious, your study was taken from the manuals, correct?
Correct.
Did you consider the fact that the applicant is a rather popular restaurateur here in South Kingstown? And did you give any subjective thought to the fact that those traffic studies may be hugely impacted because of the previous popularity of the applicant's businesses? I know it's a subjective question, but did you give that any consideration?
Yeah, that's a great question. At these popular restaurants, most of them are reservation only. So that tends to meter the amount of traffic coming in and out. So if you don't have a reservation, you might as well not waste your time going in if it is a very popular restaurant.
Okay, well, we'll discuss that with Mr. Rasso, I'm sure.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions for, yes, Ms. Walsh?
I just wanted to clarify, the ingress and egress, the only one and the main one for customers is off Old Tower Road.
Yeah, that's the primary,
That's-
that's the primary entrance exit, and that's the only one that's really going to be visible to people. So most of the customers are going to be coming in and out of
Post
there.
or-
I'd say a majority.
About this a lot, as you might guess.
I got the hint.
Yeah, no, we did, oh, totally. And so, I mean, Bob, in our discussions, we did talk about the rear entrance and would people be cutting back and forth? And I think we know that the KFC, the Kentucky Fried Chicken next door, is also the same, where it's a through lot, and they don't gate except, I believe, on the weekends. So, I mean, as a traffic engineer and patterns that you've seen, and each neighborhood is different, we understand that. What were your thoughts in terms of people using Narragansett West to get into the property and conversely, to get out of it?
Yeah, a lot of the routes through the neighborhood are very windy and slow, and so if you can get out onto the main roads, you can travel at much higher speeds, I think.
And you're planning, or I guess I'll wait for Mr. Russo, the plan is that the deliveries will be made to the back?
There's actually not a plan per se for the deliveries at this time. In the morning, if they come in and they're in the front and they can do it, obviously if the parking lot, is full, most of the deliveries will be in the morning when just the market is operating, so it's whoever comes in best. We did talk about, and Perry can address this too, dumpsters, we're not gonna have those till after 8 a.m. He's got control over the person that picks that up. So, most delivery trucks want to get in and out as quick as possible, and that's Old Tower Hill Road. And these trucks aren't going to be delivering it at the peak hours of 4 to 6, because that makes no sense for them. So we would prefer not to block off the rear 100%, because we think it's an important access. We've talked, and Perry can address this, with the Union Fire District about it, and they said, the gate's fine, but we'll need a key to get into it when it's locked and that sort of thing, which we can do also. So it's trying to, balance the interests of the neighborhood and the business. And just the way the existing building is, that's a pretty narrow path to come through if you wanted to just, to come through just to exit that way. So, I think in all of our discussions, it's thought that will probably be mostly local traffic. And there is parking back there also, but most of the employee will be off-site. And we anticipate the majority of the parking will be in front, and if necessary, valet.
So the plan is to bring the employees over together? I guess we could ask that later.
Yeah, it's what he does at the Matunic Oyster Bar. They don't park near that location, so that's something he has to figure out to get his employees to that site, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Quinn?
Yeah, I guess to that end, how do you imagine delivery vehicles to actually function on this site? I think that's just logistically, just the mechanics of how that would work, how maneuverability, things like that.
Why don't we, I think maybe we'll switch from Bob to Perry now, and he can start off with that question, as he's obviously come on up, and we'll get you sworn in.
Identify yourself for the record.
Perry Rasso, P-E-R-R-Y-R-A-S-O.
Raise your right hand. Swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
May proceed, Ms. Norton.
Just tell him who you are.
I'm the owner of the property at 151 Old Tower Hill. As far as deliveries, how I envision, is there a pointer or something? No? That's all right. Yeah, that's all right. I envision the traffic for the any deliveries coming in through the rear, entering, and trash removal trucks entering that way and pulling alongside the building, which would be up more towards closer to the building. Right along that side, unloading into a door that will be to the right of the cursor now, and then pulling out forward when possible. There'll also be instances if that lot is full, they would need to back out of that on that road. That is in the morning. A lot of the trucks come early in the morning before the market might be open. Those trucks can pull in, and we can ask them to, and they usually adhere to the requests. And this would be more convenient for them to pull in off of the main road. In most of our deliveries, say 90% of them come before noontime, and so that would be also an option.
And same for trash. So what size trash service do you have in mind for?
I would be thinking about using a contained. The dimensions would probably be, an 8 by 8 by, I think it's like maybe 15 feet. I don't know the exact dimensions, but it's fully contained. This way, there's not odor and such.
So not like a rolled out system, but an actual contained unit.
It's a contained unit, yeah. So it's not like you open the top, dump it in, seagulls eat the stuff, and it's like you dump it in the side.
And then fenced in.
I was imagining putting it behind. You see where the corner is next to the 68, the corner to the left, left a little bit more, right around there, right around in that area. So it's shielded by those trees. Are really there's a wall that we put in, retaining wall that we recently put in, as well as some pretty big trees. So that would screen it.
Yeah, I think one thing to consider for what it's worth would be Lot 68's experience. Just, you wouldn't want to create vermin, rats, people,
right,
things like that crawling around their backyard. I think that's something that should be considered, because like the moment you introduce trash, especially smelly trash that a food market might produce, I think that's going to attract a lot of animals and rodents
That's
to want to
definitely,
hang out in these folks' backyard, which I don't think they would welcome.
So how we handle it, and I think most people in the restaurant business that are in control of this kind of stuff. We have weekly visits from a company that does pest control and monitors for activity, and deals with it controls any issues like that. That's pretty much with little bait traps that only they can get in to. They're not big enough for household animals such as cats.
Got it. Understood.
Ms. Noonan, you intend to elicit some testimony, or do you want to do a Q&A? What do you want to do?
I'm going to ask him some general questions, and then if you guys had some.
Okay.
Perry, if you could just, we've talked a lot about the traffic and the gate. Are you willing or amenable to have a gate at the rear of the property restricted during the evening to the later evening to morning hours?
Yes, I think I could definitely work with a gate. I've been in touch with the understanding how the neighbor of the Kentucky Fried Chicken deals with that, and they have a gate installed. I believe it was a breakaway gate, so if an emergency vehicle needed to or whatever happened, and they leave it up, I believe 24/7 Monday through Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday it's closed 24/7. So whereas we wouldn't have it open or closed for an entire day on any days, we would have it closed during the evening hours and opening during the daytime.
And in terms of that gate, did you have the discussions with the Union Fire District or someone from
I
your
did.
office?
I did speak with someone from Union Fire District if it would, how the safety vehicles and potential emergency vehicles getting in, and they said I would just have to install a EAS lockbox, just like we have on the restaurant, so people can access it in an emergency.
And then in terms of the parking, I advised the board that you plan to have employee off-site parking. Is that correct?
That's my plan, yes.
And that's how you operate the Matunic Oyster Bar also?
It is.
All right. And if necessary, and if the restaurant becomes popular, would you implement valet parking if necessary, similar to what you do at the Matunic Oyster Bar?
If that was acceptable, I would do that, yes. The last thing I want is traffic chaos.
Anything else you want to add before I turn it over to the board for questions?
No, in regards to the runoff, we are in the same footprint, and there was, we thought about putting a dormer or something over the front door to make it a little bit more attractive, but then we decided we should stay in the footprint for a number of reasons. We're going to remove the eyelid from the building, which will reduce that footprint, and we thought about putting some, I call it lattice. It's the same kind of wood that surrounds the Matunic Oyster Bar, really decorative. And I was thinking about doing the same thing here, so that would, that's all.
And then And while there's no specific landscape requirements for this commercial highway district with the residential, is it your intention to sort of upgrade some of the landscaping that's out there currently?
Absolutely. I don't want to impede into the parking lot because but with the plantings that are there, I would certainly like to making, there's some decent plantings that are pretty healthy on the property right now, but we would definitely, like at the restaurant, weekly maintenance and improve where needed.
I don't have any other questions for Mr. Rasso.
Mr. Rasso, several questions. One, on the gate, is it your testimony that the gate will be, the rear gate facing Narragansett Avenue West will be closed 24/7? Is that what you testified?
No. That was the neighbor's property that has the Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's my understanding that that gate is closed 24/7 Saturday and Sunday and open 24/7 Monday through Friday.
Okay, so the exit from your property onto Narragansett West will remain open, is that?
No, I think based on what Perry spoke to the neighbors about, and what we're proposing is that their gate be installed and that it be closed 7 days a week from 9:30 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Okay.
That way no one cuts through it in the middle of the night.
Okay. So in that case, there'll be no exiting your parking lot on Narragansett West during those hours,
During
correct?
those hours,
Because the gate will be closed?
Yes.
And that includes like the restaurant hours. If the restaurant's staying open till midnight, people will not be able to exit out the rear, and we'll do appropriate signage if necessary. But after 9, again, we're proposing 9:30. There's no requirement that we have a gate, but we're proposing that. Then if anyone's leaving the restaurant at 11 o'clock at night, they have to go out Old Tower.
Have to go out on Old Tower Hill Road? Okay.
Neighborhood after 9.
Do you anticipate repaving the parking lot?
I don't have any plans currently to do that. I know it's not just as easy as doing that. If it's allowable, with whatever permission I have when I go to open, I would do that. But I wouldn't do that if it's not allowable. No.
A few more, Ms. Walsh. Are you going to be reservation-only operation, or how's that going to work?
If we have the demand, we will go to reservation only. Well, I guess no. So I can't forecast that. If there's that kind of demand, I would do that rather than have people go there and have to turn them away.
So how are you going to handle overflow parking? I mean, chances are you're going to get more than 57 people waiting to get into the restaurant. You have 57 parking places, I believe is the number. What do you do with people that show up and want to wait and stand in line, or however you're going to operate? How are you going to handle that? Do you have an arrangement with someone else to park cars across the street, or?
I don't think that we are able to talk about off-site parking as something that would be, it's my understanding that it's not something that I, planning that before, prior to presenting that information was not, I was told wouldn't be something that we would be able to use. Otherwise, I would have that negotiation and have brought anybody here that I could have. So
Take this scenario, okay? Your parking lot is filled up. You have 57 slots filled up. Car comes down to the west on Old Tower Hill Road and makes a turn into the parking lot and finds out there's no park. What happens? I mean, where is he going to go? Is he going to go across the street and park in
imagine they would
Shaw's?
go straight through the parking lot and probably exit onto the main road. They would go straight on and exit onto.
So he would circle around, no parking place, and leave?
Well, if they were able to pull in the parking lot from Narragansett West and saw there was no parking in the back, and then went to the front,
right,
and saw there was no parking there, and I suppose they would leave if we were that busy, where every parking spot was full, I would have implemented a valet system, and that would be.
Would you have,
would handle
do
that.
you intend to have a parking lot attendant During the,
If there's the demand for it, I would certainly, as I do now at my current establishment.
well, I think that's my concern of people backing up, coming west, trying to make a left-hand turn, and there's no parking. And then you got people coming out because there's no parking, people waiting to get in because they want to come to the restaurant. I mean,
Suppose if someone pulled in off of Narragansett West, in order for them to experience the park, or receive the parking, they would have to pull up to the front right next to Old Tower Hill. So they would perhaps go around a lot and exit out Narragansett West if that's where they were going, but
you've got a gate back there. You can't get in or out.
the gate is open between the hours of 6 and 9:30 during the day. So if they wouldn't be able to enter that way if the gate was closed, and therefore they would have to enter through the other.
During the restaurant hours, the testimony is the gate's closed.
No.
All right, let's clarify this.
Yeah, a couple things. First, I think, based on his experience at Matuna Oyster Bar, you can add this, reservations have worked out well, so if the restaurant becomes popular, reservations take care of most of it. At Matuna Oyster Bar, sometimes there were too many cars, and that was...
Would you use the mic, please?
At the Matuna Oyster Bar, sometimes there were too many cars, and there were people waiting, but the reservation system has taken care of most of that, and then the implementation of the valet parking. So you can never, estimate what will happen with a restaurant. I mean, hopefully it's successful, but it may take some time to ramp up. But remember, there's 57 spaces. Your ordinance, it's one space for every 4 seats. So he wouldn't be operating, if people can't come into park, they're not going to come back. So I think, is it fair to say that, if it might be evolving, but we meet all the requirements of the zoning right now for parking. And if there is an issue, it really becomes a business issue. I understand the neighbors' concerns, but after 9:30 p.m., again, we're proposing the gate close 9:30 p.m. to 6 a.m. So, if it gets popular and busy at 6 p.m., people could drive through. Right. But again, if it's that popular, the reservation system will be in place, and perhaps a valet system, because it's in Mr. Rasso's own interest to get those people in and seated.
After 9:30, it's impossible to exit on Narragansett West.
Correct.
Is that?
As we've proposed the gate, yes.
Okay. I may have some more, but other members?
I guess just to understand the mechanics of that, so the gate would be at the end of that alley, essentially? The gate would be along Narragansett?
Correct.
Okay, so how would folks know that the gate is closed? They'd get all the way down there, and then if it's closed, would they have to do like a K-turn to come back around?
Well, I said, first of all, signage would probably be in place initially, not that that'll cure everybody.
Yeah.
But there is, if you go out there, there's parking, there's spots, I think it's 13 spaces on that hockey stick side on one side. There probably would be enough room to turn around because where the gate is in the parking.
Mm-hmm.
That could be implemented as part of sort of the parking layout, but I think the idea would be to have some signage like, no exit after 9 o'clock or something like that, so people don't come down that path.
Yeah, I think what you want to prevent is having somebody pop into reverse for 100 feet. Hopefully they have a backup cam.
Yeah, but like I said, the alley is a natural turnaround, and again, that's kind of that's a wide space beyond where the parking spaces are. There's, for most people, should be able to turn around, especially with our backup cameras now, but, yeah, and some signage if appropriate.
Yeah, makes sense. Just trying to think through any things that would make it functionally difficult.
Understood.
I'm not trying to think through. I'm trying to think of how we could make this work. You've got a great commercial establishment proposed, but you have neighbors who have some concerns. And I was going to ask, first of all, why 9:30 to 6? Why not 6:30 to 6 to cover most of the restaurant traffic?
I think there's no guidelines for it, so we're putting it out there as a proposal, which is, sort of the main hours, and also restricting any early deliveries. I do some convenience store work, and we'll get trucks showing up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We want to make sure that doesn't happen here. Could it be 9 to 6:30? Yeah, it could be.
6:30 to 6? Or 6 to 6?
Our traffic engineers told us don't do any gate whatsoever. You should have full access 100%, and he was vehemently opposed to us coming up here and proposing that. So, I don't want it to get chipped away too much because, the market will be closing at least around 7. So, we're trying to balance the interest, and that was based on, I wasn't at the meeting, but some of the concerns that Perry heard at the meeting. I think he had committed to a gate, and those were the hours that we we picked, so.
And were the lights or the noise a concern of the neighbors in that meeting?
I don't recall hearing noise as a concern from, Ida wasn't at it, but I received some notes. Light, there was some concern that there would be glare, so I think the idea, to the extent that there's lighting that's consistent with your zoning ordinance, obviously, and your regulations, it would be, make sure it's not directed at neighbors. I mean, it is a commercial, you got KFC on the other side and some law offices, so that's not a concern, but make sure that there's nothing shining across the street. And then again, there's a big height difference between that lot behind it. So any lights that might be on the back of the building or on the back of the wall could be lower and could be, I don't see, they're not going to be pointing up to the sky, so.
There was a concern about outside refrigeration?
Yeah, Perry uses outside units at the Matunic Oyster Bar, and I think he'd spoken to some of the neighbors if you want to address it. And I think a noise was a concern, but I think they're quiet units if you want to talk about that.
There is, we do have outdoor units at the restaurant, and they're pretty, very efficient. They're totally sealed, so there's not panels, so there's not as much escape from cold air through the seams in the panels, and they, I can't hear him standing right next to him, and it's not some old giant humming noise, and there will be indoor refrigeration, but I was also hoping to have outdoor refrigeration where that retaining wall, which I just built, is behind the building, not where the parking spots are, obviously, but butting up against the building.
Now, the other question I had maybe for Jamie, the history of that barrier. I'm not sure. I drove through and I thought I saw where it was, but it sounds now like it's further down the alley or further down the side of the building.
I think there was some fencing in place when Perry bought it that's been removed. But I don't, if that was that at the street edge or?
That was it was at the edge of the street and the property. Narragansett Ave West and the property, right on the property line.
And that's where you'd propose to put the gate also?
Correct.
Yeah, there was some history of it, Jamie. Was it established in the plan or the plot originally?
Yeah, so this parcel was developed in, I don't have the date off the top of my head, I believe 76, and we were able to find the building permit associated with that, but there was no site plan or any conditions or curb cut approval relative to that rear entrance, showing that there was a chain length or any conditions for be limited access. So aside from it being there, there's no record of the town having.
Strictly anecdotal, the previous owner told me that he installed the gate because either he or the previous owner felt there was burglaries happening, or people were stealing stuff, and that's why he put the fence up, because he thought people were coming off of that road. I have no idea about the reality of it. That's what I was told by Mr. Richmond.
So it's not something that was in place on the city site plan and required to be there?
No, we have no
Of a
record.
fence that has to be, replaced if it's taken down for safety.
That's correct. We have no record of it being a condition for the development. The asphalt extends from the private property through the town right-of-way. Although it looks overgrown in this street view here, we just don't have any record of it saying that it's required.
Thank you.
Two different areas. The first one, going back to valet parking. You use valet parking at your other restaurant, and it seems to be very efficient. Because human nature, if somebody drives in with a brand-new car with no scratches, what might they do? Take two spaces so that, nobody's going to park next to their car. So by using a valet, you have very efficient parking there. Is that something you might consider at this new establishment because it would, make it easier to make sure that each car is in only one space, for one thing. And also, could the valet, when they return the car to the owner, could they be pointing it towards Old Tower Hill Road to eliminate the possibility that somebody would try to go out the back?
I was going to say that, and I forgot, but I do, I have every intention of making this business as good as I possibly can for the business's sake, for the town's sake, because I want to. And I expect that if I'm able to achieve that, it's going to be busy. And if it's going to be busy, I'm going to need valet. And if I have valet, people aren't going to be, they're going to be pointed to the main road. They're not going to be pointed out here. Cars are going to be, collected in the front of the building, and they're going to be pointed to the front of the building. So I hope that, it's not, I feel that that could be the case, and that certainly the valets would be pointing cars out onto the main road and not in the back entrance. But I also realize deliveries and are important as well as I'm not sure what other restrictions or what have you I might have to experience down the road. That's why I don't feel comfortable just saying I'm not going to use it at all. But I do feel that the main traffic is going to be heading out naturally out of the main access of the road. If you were able to go to the previous slide to show the overhead of the building, if you don't mind. As a resident here for many years, I never would have think to use the road, and now that I kind of more familiar with it, I understand the concern where it might become something that people regularly use. But there is the two properties to the left, 121 and 133, both have accesses from the main road through Narragansett West, and that is, existing now, and that whatever traffic is coming through there, I don't know that 151 would, being open would change that, but I do understand the concern.
Same thing for valet. Right now, you don't know if he will need it, but if he does, that certainly makes sense for your business since you already have a valet company online. Yeah,
I've already spoken to them about it, as well as obviously the fire department and the trash company, and just to make sure that those things were addressable.
My second question has to do with your meeting with the abutters, the neighbors. Were they generally, and I know they're going to have an opportunity to speak, but were they generally satisfied by having you say that the gate would be closed overnight? Looking for more than
from what I recall, and from the meeting, it seemed that people didn't want access really after, from when school got out, and some people said from when school got out on, and some people said from 8 o'clock on, and then in reading these remarks, I realized that many of them don't want it to exist any access there at all. So that those are the three answers.
Okay, that's why I'm asking, because I also read, the submitted letters from the abutters, and their concerns seem to be more about bikers and walkers, and that would not be occurring after 9:30 at night for the most part. So that's why I wondered if you were able to work something out with them.
I'm, as I said, I'm hoping that this is, the conversation, I know it's important to have in case, but I'm hoping that this lot is really run, I'm hoping the business is busy enough to require valet. I feel that if I make it a good enough business, it will be busy enough that we'll need valet, and then we won't have this problem, but that's not a certain thing, so.
I think I wasn't at the meeting again, but the notes, obviously it went across the board, and I don't know if the people who wrote in the letters to you were at that meeting, but, some people, Perry clearly said, I'll commit to a gate, and then it's the devil's in the details, right? So that was kind of our thought. It was like, well, commit to the gate, and then, hopefully we can come to something that works for everybody. I have nothing further to present.
Anyone here that wants to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone here opposed that wants to speak? Okay, let's go down the list and see who's here and see if you want to testify, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I believe, letters that the board has considered and has read and is part of the record. Paul and Ginny Kenny, are they here? Do you wish to testify? Yeah. Just identify yourself for the record and spell
Virginia
your name.
Kenny. Yeah, I just want to clarify, we live directly across
Hold on.
the,
Just spell your name for the record,
sorry,
please.
okay. VIRGINIA KENNY.
And raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
You may proceed.
So we live directly across the back access of the Feet First property. And I just want to clarify,
68, or can you identify where you're?
no, 57.
Okay.
That's it. Yep. So I just wanted to clarify about the gate for KFC. That is closed 7 nights a week, Monday through Sunday. When they are closed, the gate gets closed, and they've been very good about doing that lately. So that is it.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay. We have Alan and Melissa Toll. Do you wish to speak, sir? Okay, come on up. Spell your name for the record.
LLENTOWLE.
Raise your right hand. Swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
You may proceed.
In regards to the meeting, now I've been in my residence, 73 Narragansett Ave West. I've been there, we've owned the property since 1972. Now that property, when they put in the building at Feet First, there was a meeting with the town, and the lawyer was Mr. Gates, and my mother and father were present, my grandmother was present because she owned property on there, and the town made them put the fence in. And that fence has been in there for over 40 years. There is no precedent for any kind of traffic going through there whatsoever, because there's never been any traffic going through there ever. So to say that that would not change the neighborhood is unrealistic.
Well, Mr. Towle, let me ask you this. Looking at where your property is located, 73, cars exiting that rear entrance that we have under discussion here, it's going to turn right. It's not going to go in front of your house, correct?
People are going to do whatever they want to do, and a stop sign or a little arrow isn't going to stop them.
Well, I mean, it's a dead end, so...
No, it's not a dead end. Not by a long shot.
Well, they can go down a side street.
And then go
Yeah, I
down
agree.
out of the post office.
Okay. So if the
Even
applicant...
Belmont's cuts through.
So if the applicant were to agree to a sign on a property that said right turn only and said no exit left or something to that nature, do you think that would help some of your concerns so that any
Not if
traffic
people have been
coming out
drinking.
there during hours in which the gate wasn't closed, he's proposed a gate?
I don't believe that anyone would listen to a sign.
Oh.
I don't believe that that's true at all. And the traffic is actually quite fast through there. And my children can't use the bike trail because there's no pedestrian traffic that's actually safe. And there's a lot of kids on there. And I might add that right in front of my property is a bus stop.
Okay.
So having box trucks coming through there, that might be an issue.
And what time does the bus stop there during the day?
They stop there in the morning, you know, and then average school hours, yeah.
2:30, 3
Yeah,
o'clock?
2:33. I don't have the exact knowledge in my head.
Okay.
But there was a meeting with the town, and it seems that every time this piece of property changes hands, that I come on down here and mention that this has never happened, and there's always been a fence there, and
When did the fence go away? Do you know? No, excuse me,
March 17th.
of this year.
Yes, he took it away. He was the first one to take it away.
Okay. Any other questions?
So, and then, so this is a commercial highway. Narragansett Ave isn't a highway.
Correct.
And I had just a curiosity question. As you look at the overlaying map, is often with the red as to what the commercial zoning is, the zoning always goes right down the middle of the street, as you can see right here. Is that because only half of the street is zoned commercial, and the other half, because mailboxes are on it, I assume, are zoned residential?
Sometimes sometimes a street will be bisected by a zoning district and sometimes it won't. You know, the roadway is half in one zoning district and half in another.
So what would that mean for exiting vehicles or entering vehicles? Because then KFC wouldn't be able to receive deliveries either.
Well, I'm not sure the designation of the zone has anything to do with where vehicles
With the street.
go.
It's just a curiosity question on my part. I've always seen it that way and never knew. Now I've learned something.
Mr. Chairman, yet the towns, streets, and state right-of-ways, the only restrictions are typically to vehicle height or weight with respect to bridges, but not who can travel or the size of the vehicle.
Thank you.
Any other questions for this gentleman? Board members? Okay. And we have your written statement as well. Lois and Carl told former owners. Okay, they sent that in. Okay. And then Casey Abedi. Come on up. We have your
Good evening.
documentation, and you're
Yeah.
welcome to testify. Would you state your name and spell it
It's
for the record?
Casey Abedi, Kasey, Abedi, Abedi.
And do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed.
You've already read my written letter. So the biggest issue that a majority of us have with the property, with Matunuck Market going in, is that we're afraid that traffic is going to be directed into the neighborhood. We're not necessarily worried about the trucks coming in. I understand what it takes to run a restaurant. Worked in the restaurant business for 20 years. Our biggest concern is people consuming alcohol in the evening and then pulling into Narragansett Ave and then going into our neighborhood where our children play, where our kids ride their bikes.
At 9:30 at night?
Our kids play manhunt. They can go between neighbors' houses. I mean, our children play outside. It's still light out at 9:30 in the summer.
Okay, so the applicant has proposed a gate
Yes.
between the hours of 9:30, until midnight, or till closing of his restaurant.
He said 6 a.m.
6 a.m., sorry. So that's not acceptable to you, or?
It's not. So the problem with it is the people leaving in the evening. Closing the gate at 9:30 at night isn't going to protect our children and our families and our property during those hours. If he could close it after the deliveries were made during that day, then that would be useful. to stop people coming into the neighborhood. We've never had traffic coming from that property into our neighborhood. I've lived here since 1992 in this neighborhood. My husband and I bought our house on Narragansett Ave West 13 years ago. I've lived in this neighborhood my whole entire life.
Where's your residence? You want to point that out?
96. My house is directly in front of the stop sign over on MacArthur Boulevard and Narragansett Ave West where they intersect.
Okay, so business traffic entering or exiting from the proposed exit onto Narragansett West is predominantly going to turn right, isn't it?
I don't think so, no. When you pull down into Narragansett Ave to go, let's say, to Old Tower Hill Road, it is very hard to make a left-hand turn over there. If people are going towards Narragansett or towards the lower end of Wakefield downtown, they're going to go by my house and go down MacArthur Boulevard where there's a stoplight that they can use to exit onto a main road. This was the same issue we had with the drive-through that was proposed before.
Okay. Any questions? Anyone? Board members? All right. Thank you for your testimony.
Thanks.
Martha Carr. Martha Carr here. We have something in record from her. All right. Okay. We have your documentation. Thank you. Basically, similar concerns to what we've heard this evening. So, is there anyone else here that? Yes, come on up. And your name, ma'am?
Good evening, and thanks for this opportunity. My name is Veronica Kott, and that's spelled Veronikakot.
Last name is K-O-T?
K-O-T.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed.
Again, thank you for this opportunity. I'm a resident of Narragansett Avenue West.
What number?
It's 67B. So I'm not sure it appears there, but if you go down the private dirt drive that goes between Alan's house and Paul and Jenny's house, that's my only egress out onto the street, Narragansett Avenue West. So basically, my driveway is almost directly across the street from the proposed exit onto Narragansett Avenue West. I second the concerns that have been echoed here before. We are a residential neighborhood with many small children and no street calming, no sidewalks. We already experience a lot of through traffic from other places on the main road, the main commercial road. We do that, this is because people know the shortcut. Our neighborhood's a great shortcut and people speed through it all the time. From a perspective of what this specific hearing is about, which is a special alcohol permit, I would propose that that is a premature question, given that no full traffic study has been done. By its own terms, what we have is a traffic assessment, and I would propose that that traffic assessment is drawn on inappropriate measures that are not comparable to the traffic that is likely to be generated here. With all due respect to the traffic engineer and expert, he's obviously never tried to take a left turn out of Narragansett Avenue West. He's obviously never seen Kabuki, which is the corner restaurant, on a Saturday night. And he's obviously never seen the Matunic Oyster Bar and the traffic that it generates. This is a different kind of endeavor than the data points that he used to generate his figures. I think what we need is a full traffic study to look exactly at how this liquor permit would in fact alter the character of the adjacent neighborhood. And I want to make clear right away that I support Perry's enterprise. Everybody loves the Matunic Oyster Bar. But we would want it to live within its means, so to speak, and not externalize the negative consequences of the traffic on the adjacent neighborhood. And to do that, we lack the information, the appropriate information to do that. We need a traffic study that looks at the appropriate measures, preferably a study that's independently done. And I also have to say that the assurances of a gate are not adequate, absolutely not adequate. We as a neighborhood have lived with the assurances of a gate for upward of 20 years. The gate that was recently closed at the KFC had not been closed for 2 decades until we finally complained to the town council. Now it's closed. But I also have to ask, if there is no curb permit, doesn't egress onto Narragansett Avenue West require an application?
Ingress and egress is part of the...
Exit from that,
Excuse me, ingress...
exit from the property that is being developed. Doesn't it require an application for such a permit?
That's why we're here. It's part of the special use permit. Ingress and egress from the property is part of the special use requirement that has to be met by the applicant. So that's why we're here.
Okay.
One of the reasons why we're here.
Mr. Chairman.
Because it was advertised as only requiring a liquor license, and now we're learning it also requires that. And we would certainly oppose that. This was a property that was fenced for decades, and that fence was literally taken down in March. As a neighborhood, I don't think we feel protected unless that fence is put back up. So I think we have to oppose it for all the reasons that my neighbors have specified, including the very young children that want to be able to ride their bikes. And no, it's not enough that there be conversations with the neighborhood. A conversation is a conversation. Until there is an adequate traffic study that looks at the impact on our neighborhood and on the traffic generally, and that looks at potentially mitigating requirements, such as putting that fence back up, because of the traffic that a second Matunic Oyster Bar is likely to generate. We don't feel that our children are safe. If you've ever tried to leave or exit or enter the neighborhood itself, you will know that people cut through it all the time. No, they don't take a right turn. They go right through and exit sometimes, as I do sometimes, by the other restaurant, the Cantina del Rio, because traffic is literally so bad already on the main highway close to our house that it bears going clear around the neighborhood to exit. So including additional traffic to what Kabuki already generates going through our neighborhood, often speeding, certainly alcohol increases the number of people who come to a neighborhood and a restaurant. Again, I want to reiterate that I support this enterprise. This place has been vacant for too long. This would be a beautiful place to put there. But please don't externalize and allow the externalizing of the absolutely likely traffic on our neighborhood that's adjacent. Please require a real traffic study to occur and the mitigating measures that need to happen to protect our neighborhood. Thank you.
Couple questions. Have you ever filed a complaint with the police department about the traffic that you testified to? Lots of traffic coming from the Japanese restaurant, your concerns about liquor increasing the amount of traffic. Have you filed anything with the police department to have them come out and maybe monitor the area during those peak periods?
I have at one point called the town when the Seagulls were having a party in the Kabuki dumpsters, literally with trash everywhere.
But more specific to the traffic, you said speeding, you testified speeding traffic. My question is, have you contacted the police department and asked them to come out and perhaps monitor the area during that time of the speeding traffic?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
Any other questions, board members?
I just wanted to say, I think you mentioned earlier that through the complaints of the neighborhood to the city council, they got the fence at Kentucky Fried Chicken closed?
For the first time in over 20 years.
And how long ago did that happen?
A few months.
That was when we went and we came to the town council for, they wanted to put a dispensary in.
When we were talking about the cannabis overlay district and where it should be. That came up as one of the situations where informal promises are not adequate to protecting a neighborhood's interests because they are rarely enforced.
So after that, somebody contacted Kentucky Fried Chicken, which is right next to Mr. Russo's proposed restaurant. Well, the restaurant, I had understood also was the liquor license, but the Kentucky Fried Chicken gate was closed after that.
Correct. And Ginny, you could testify more specifically to how that happened, or Paul.
Yes, okay, so when Kentucky Fried Chicken was built there on the leased property from Mr. Gates and others, Mr. Gates told me that the agreement was that Kentucky Fried Chicken would have a gate that would be closed during off hours. And we thought that was very nice. And that happened for, I would say, less than a year. And that was built in, I think, the late 90s, I'm not sure. So since the late 90s, that gate has been open. And I happened to mention it at the meeting of the cannabis overlay, that there's a gate there, but it often is not closed. And Mr. Carr, I'm saying his name right, looked into it and found that it was in the record that that was part of the agreement, that that gate would be closed during off hours. Yeah, and they've been keeping it closed.
Thanks for the clarification, appreciate it. Yes, you want to? Come back up, come back up.
Can we zoom into the KFC parking lot where the gate is?
I'm confident the building official can do that.
Please and thank you. So currently where the gate sits over on that property is where the drive-through starts for Taco Bell and KFC. So when people are using that, they're pulling in and going back around, and they're being directed to the front of the property onto Old Tower Hill Road. To come back and go up and into Narragansett Ave West, they would have to wait for the drive-through traffic to clear to come up. I just wanted to point that out for everybody, because it is not the same as a busy restaurant and a fast food restaurant that doesn't actually access that neighborhood on a regular basis.
Mr. Diamond, have a question?
Just a question for you, I guess, on behalf of the neighborhood. Because it sounds to me, just listening and reading some of the things that were read into the record, that the concerns are consistent among all of you.
Yes.
And would it be accurate to say that the concerns are truly really just limited to site circulation and the direction of externality, as Veronica mentioned, or externalizing the business concept in sort of funneling it into your neighborhood? So
yeah.
It sounds like, just I want to clarify that I understand this properly. The concern isn't the business model, it isn't the special use permit, it isn't the alcohol permit, it isn't any of those items. It's purely on the basis of circulation and externality. Is that correct?
Basically, yes. I mean, there is concern with the liquor license just because traffic would be coming, but that's only the concern because traffic would be coming into the neighborhood. If it wasn't coming into the neighborhood at all, then there doesn't make a difference. We're all excited for him to be here. He has beautiful plans. I know he'll do a wonderful job. Right. We just don't want people who've been drinking alcohol coming into our neighborhood where our children play and our pets are. And
Excuse me, Mr. Diamond, you have a restaurant down the street that already has an alcohol permit, right? On the corner?
So there is a sign, or it was there, I'm not sure if it's there now, a no-through traffic sign at the edge of the property for Kabuki. I went to the town recently off of Route 1, and they came back and re-put all the no parking signs up because they were worn. And I have filed complaints with the police department in the past for speeding. I was almost hit. Me and my children were almost hit walking our dogs a couple years ago, so I have filed complaints about the speeding. And I did ask them to come and monitor the neighborhood, which they never did.
Okay. You have anything further, Mr. Diamond? Go ahead.
I think Veronica wanted to
I did want to make
comment.
a clarifying comment about the externalizing. Zach had made that comment. I think as a neighborhood, we are all concerned about the externalizing of traffic. I do think the liquor license is related to that very closely because a liquor license increases traffic. You just need to look at any restaurant that has one and what it looks like on a Saturday night as compared to a restaurant that doesn't. So they're intricately related. And yes, we're concerned about driving and liquor and the increase in traffic and then putting it through our neighborhood. So I think that summarizes it. I guess one question I also have is that while we had gone down to look for the permit that permitted exit onto Narragansett Avenue West and not found it, I didn't see anything in the notice for tonight that was part of the permitting process. So that's just a question and concern because I do believe it needs to be noticed and requested separately.
Mr. Chairman, if I could touch on that. So what she's referring to is a curb cut traditionally. So the town would, this being a town road, Narragansett Ave West would issue a permit to create access to a lot. This is paved from parking lot to town right-of-way, through the right-of-way to the pavement on Narragansett Ave West. So although we don't have a physical alteration permit, a curb cut from 1976, we view it as not having the record, that it's perhaps grandfathered and non-conforming, because we don't have anything to say otherwise.
Just to add to that, whether or not, curb cut permits are required, it's not something that needs to be noticed because it's not a zoning ordinance requirement. And so tonight, what's been noticed for the neighbors and the public is just the relief that the board needs to grant from the zoning ordinance, which is just the special use permit.
Thank you, Amy. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? Yes. Come on up. Come on up. You're still under oath. Come on up. Let's try to limit this to new evidence as opposed to repeating what's already been said.
Okie dokie. I don't see how it could be grandfathered if it was never allowed in the first place.
And, curb cut permitting is separate and apart, although related to, zoning and land use, but typically grandfathered status would apply to pre-existing uses, or in this case, entrances and exits.
Thank you, Amy. Yes, you want to come up? State your name for the record.
My name is Jason Dollard, Jasondollard.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
You may proceed.
So I recently bought 91 Narragansett Avenue West just this last year, so I'm probably the newest neighbor here. So my property is the corner property next to Allen's that is on the corner of Narragansett Avenue West and MacArthur. So I'm also very close, just to add a little bit of perspective of being new to this neighborhood. So my mother here, we moved here in 1997 to this town. I graduated high school here and then subsequently lived in Providence and outside of town, became married. We've been fighting for a long time to come back. As you all know, it's a difficult market. It's difficult to get here. So a major aspect of moving here to this town is the quality of life that comes along with that. When we were shown this property by our realtor, I was astounded that I had never once been in this neighborhood in all the years I had been in this town. This neighborhood is almost like a secret little neighborhood spot. And so my fear, just like everyone else's here, is that the increase in traffic here is likely due to a restaurant. As you noted, Mr. Vice Chairman, Mr. Rasso's a very good restaurateur. He's probably going to create a very busy restaurant, and we all support that. I've known Mr. Rasso for over 20 years. We all like his idea. I was the one, I think, that began the idea of the gate as a compromise. But as I've listened to my neighbors and the history of this neighborhood more, I do believe that a permanent structure on the back, a permanent fence, does need to go back up. I feel that we're in a position here that we're about to open the genie from the bottle. And I think once it gets opened, there's no putting it back. When the town understands that that cut-through exists, as we all do living in that neighborhood, it is going to be very quick and easy for people to realize how much easier it is to get away from Tower Hill traffic, to come around out by the post office. And once that's known, it won't be only because of the restaurant that people are doing that. Once that people realize that that cut-through exists, it's going to forever change the landscape of the neighborhood. I have a 5- and 3-year-old daughter who ride their bikes on these streets, who will be standing at the bus stop as these trucks are coming in for delivery. So I don't see there any safe way, really, for our children or families to maintain the integrity of this neighborhood as being a quiet, family, middle-class neighborhood with such increase in such traffic.
Excuse me, where's the bus stop that your children?
From what I understand is directly in front of 73. I believe there may be 2 bus stops, I've heard.
Okay.
Casey would know better. Her kids are already in school here. Mine have not begun yet, but.
Why would delivery trucks be coming any further than the rear entrance from Narragansett West?
If you drive up Narragansett West,
yep,
in the direction the delivery trucks would likely be coming in off of Tower Hill, and you can see the entrance to where Mr. Toll's property is and Veronica's property. Oh, we haven't met. This is very narrow here. This street is not a very wide street, and although I've heard it said tonight that this alleyway behind the restaurant is wide enough to potentially make turns, it's also not very wide. So any larger truck is going to have to do some type of K-turning, some type of maneuvering to get into that, just to begin with. And so I can imagine that Alan's children will be looking out their window, watching truck after truck almost come into their driveway in order to back around in order to get in.
Well, the testimony from the applicant doesn't support that, because his testimony was that most of the deliveries will take place before he even opens his business. I believe that was his testimony. And most of that traffic will come in from Old Tower Hill Road. That's the testimony we heard.
The testimony I heard was the same, and what he said was, and it's the same he said at the meeting, majority of his deliveries would be between around 8 a.m. to 11, which is well within the time the children would be waiting at the school bus. Also, foot traffic, bike traffic. In general, my point is just to speak to the nature of this neighborhood that I've witnessed in just recently moving in here, hoping to have a long, fruitful, safe place for my children. That is simply my point of view.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else here that wishes to speak in opposition? Is this something new? Okay, you need to come up.
I was wondering if it's possible to ask a question of Perry?
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll permit.
Can you tell us, please, again? Like,
We'll permit a limited cross-examination, if you will, if you want to ask him a specific question.
Yeah.
Or maybe ask it through the board, and
Okay.
we'll ask him.
Oh, sure. I'd like to ask him about the trucks arriving in the morning. Approximately how many and how big? Like how many large trailer trucks will be coming through? The frequency of them? That kind.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Mr. Rasso, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, there will be. I think the largest trucks certainly would be the 18-wheelers that you see on the road, whether it's Cisco or Gordon type of vehicles. They don't come every day. And then there's like smaller seafood purveyor or like herb purveyor type trucks and smaller vans. that might deliver seafood, herbs, and things like smaller wine purveyors use smaller vans. Larger liquor purveyors use, box trucks, not quite as big as a Cisco or a Gordon truck. But as far as the number of them, I would estimate that getting 10 deliveries between 6 and noon would be, I would say between 5 and 10 deliveries would be rough. 5 would be on the low end, 10 would be on the high end, is my guess.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak, wish to speak in opposition?
I don't know how I'm going to do this because I had a problem with my ears.
Identify yourself for the record, please. State your name and spell it.
Raymond Carr. I have a problem with my hearing, and I didn't hear anything tonight, but I know the problem.
Okay, you want to raise your right hand? Promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You may proceed.
My children are grown up now, but they do come over a lot to the house, but they're older adults. I don't have any young children myself anymore. But I do go out the driveway and go out onto the main road. And I find it very, very difficult to get out onto that main road by Kabuchi's restaurant and the bank. In fact, 2 days ago, I thought I had an opportunity to get on the road, but a guy just put it in gear and went right by me. This is how tough it is. I always told people it's getting to look like Warwick back in the old days. This is not new. This is nothing new. We just have so much traffic now, it's ridiculous trying to get out. If you're trying to get out, you got a light down by the main drag, and then you got a light up by Shores, and they don't work together. You just hope that that light stops so you can get out and go right. But you can't go across the street and go back left. Do you understand what I'm talking about? The traffic, the way it goes? It's not like both lights stop up there and up there so you can get out. You can't. So what I was doing, I wanted to get out, and I thought I had a little distance, and I started to move out, and the car went right by me. I went like this to him. So it's difficult. My situation, I had a scooter. I still have the scooter. The registration is due this month. And I used to take the scooter every day when I'm playing tennis, go over to the Guild and ride it. It was a nice, cool ride, back, very comfortable. No more registration. I got it in June. I'm not riding it anymore. I don't dare to go on that road. There's too much traffic going both ways. You don't have a prayer. And the scooter only goes 35 miles an hour. So if you get caught between two cars, you're dead. So the scooter is no longer in use. That's how I feel about that road.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
A lot of young kids. I feel badly for your restaurant. I know there's going to be cars, and a lot of cars by the post office. They'll go out our road as an access road. And cars will come in the other way. They'll go out by, if you want to get out heading towards Point Judith. I see that every day. I work in the yard every day. I see it happening. Nothing new. I'm not telling stories out of school. I'm just telling you a situation. I almost got knocked out the other day. I just mentioned that. I get out quick.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carr. We get it. We get your
I
message.
didn't hear anything tonight. I know the problem both ways. I did not hear a thing. My hearing, I hope you can hear me, because I am talking a little loud with no ears on tonight. But my wife said, no, don't get up, don't get up, don't get up. No, I had to get up.
Okay.
This is our neighbor, our new neighbor.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Everybody, I'm a local guy. I've been here all my life. Left Narragansett, South Kingstown. Nothing new to me. But the town has grown. Narragansett, you can't get down Narragansett Avenue. I
All right.
can ride my bike down.
Mr. Carr, you're getting off subject now. Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it. Thank you. If there's no one else that wishes to testify in opposition, Ms. Noonan, you've heard the concerns. What do you and Mr. Rasso want to respond to? How do you want to proceed?
Sure, a couple of things, if I might, and obviously we understand what the neighbors are saying, and we appreciate the support for the restaurant, so it's got a balance between, you know, buying in a commercial highway district, and I did some of the due diligence when Perry bought his place, and there were no restrictions on anything that we saw. We spent a lot of time researching, and if there'd been a restriction on the fence or on usage or something, we would have picked that up, but we didn't find that. In terms of a traffic report that was mentioned, if I could just have Bob come up. I didn't ask him this last time, and why we didn't do a full traffic analysis versus what he did. And Bob, I was just wondering if you could just address, and this deals just talking right now about Old Tower Hill Road, which is a state highway, and the regulations, and how essentially this proposed use doesn't impact, we don't believe impacts the RIDOT determination for the physical alteration permit, which is, Bob will tell you why we didn't do a full traffic report.
Yeah, I think there's two reasons, and I correct me if I'm wrong about the requirement of the town to perform one for this application. It's not required. That's number one. Number two, DOT would not require one if the change in traffic generated by the different use, like if they were to, like I said originally, if they were to reoccupy the property, it would generate traffic. And so we use that as a base. And if it doesn't increase it by a certain threshold, and this is well below that threshold, it's typically around 50 cars. And this is, like I said, the exiting traffic based on IT trip generation. And if they were using, if it is so successful, it's going to be reservation only. So.
And also just in terms of the ITE studies that you used, I think just in your testimony, you said that you use like for a supermarket and dining. Would those be, this is counterintuitive, conservative in the fact that they overstate what you believe the traffic to be for this type of use?
Yes.
Thanks, Bob. So that's the issue on the traffic report. So we're fairly confident, at least, of that. In terms of managing the traffic out on Narragansett Avenue West, obviously we have competing interests. So let me give you some thoughts or proposals that we have. I think the right out only signage as much as possible. I understand that people might ignore it. There are ways to do it. I've done a lot of work for, convenience stores and gas stations, and there are ways to design signage and things to get people to flow in a certain way. So that's one thing that can be done, a right out only onto Narragansett Ave West. Second, valet. Again, valet has been very successful at the Mattoonic Oyster Bar, combined with reservations. And honestly, I think post-COVID, all of us are into reservations. We don't want to stand around and wait. I never want to wait anyway. So I don't know how to put that into a condition that we would be using valet during busy times, because right now it's hard to say when that is. And I know that's a difficult thing to put into a condition. We would welcome a condition that said that, use valet when appropriate. Now, that might be a moving target, which doesn't make it easy, but that's certainly something that's acceptable. And if we can roll back the time, I don't recall anyone saying what the KFC gate is now and when it's closed. Obviously, it's been open for 20 years. Most of the time, I assume people were cutting through then, and we want to not have people cut through or become accustomed to it, if they can't get through during certain hours. So not knowing what those hours are that the gate's closed at KFC, we could push it back like to 8 p.m. to the 6 a.m. for closing. I'm really hesitant to just close it permanently. I think we need it for delivery. I think we need it for circulation. I don't know if this board still does one-year review.
Well, in some cases, yes, but if to the extent that valet might be difficult now to pin down or predict. It's possible the board could tie the condition of approval on valet service during busy times as determined by the police department.
Right.
You know, if the applicant is willing to accept the police department's opinion on that.
And I think, you know, we've had experience at the Mattoonic Oyster Bar dealing with the police. They usually have police posted down there, at least they had historically. And this hearing is, again, is just for the zoning. There will be a separate hearing for the liquor license hearing before the town council. My goal tonight would be to hopefully hammer out as many of these issues, at least with, you know, with this board and with the neighbors that are here, in an attempt to, you know, get the two uses to live together.
All right, where are you with the gate closure? What
8
What are
p.m.
you willing to accept as a condition?
8 p.m. to 6 a.m., 7 days a week.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So regarding deliveries, why is it imperative that deliveries be made via Narragansett, not via Old Tower or via the main road?
I'll let Perry answer.
My what I would imagine is if a larger truck was trying to pull in during the hours we were operating and there's cars in the lot, the truck wouldn't be able to pull in and out of there. So that's why it would be, you know, hopefully be able to pull in, you know, one way and pull out the other way, or, you know, if it's slow enough or we're not open, they can come in and out off of Tower Hill. But that's the reasoning, so they can pull alongside the building, unload, and then keep going straight. If that would the reasoning.
I hear that. I think about the other businesses that are along the main drag there, like Shaw's, for example. They don't have access to a thoroughfare or a side street, and they seem to get by just fine. I mean, they have far more parking than you have. They're also established as
our businesses on the road that I'm I mean, I'll say this, we don't want to park on the road to do deliveries, and I know that is an alternative, and that's not a safe alternative.
How would, I guess my question is, how would that be an alternative? Because I feel like part of the narrative explained earlier this evening was that deliveries would not really happen during business time because it would be like not opportune for your whole operation.
I think a few times, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think a few times that we've talked about during business times, we're kind of referring to the business and we're forgetting about the market, which would be open earlier than the restaurant.
Yeah.
So business hours for the market would be open, I don't know, I guess between 8 or 8:30, I think is what I would propose. And so we would still be getting deliveries during those hours.
Yeah.
Are you amenable to no right turn coming out of the
You mean right turn only?
right turn only?
Right,
I'm
yes.
sorry. And would you be amenable if it's proper for no outlet on the left, which is really not, there is an outlet, but
Okay.
I don't know if that's doable with the requirements of the police department or the building official, but
I mean, if there's signage that we can put to encourage or discourage people from going back there, yeah, that might.
no left turn, right turn only, that kind of thing?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Walsh.
Once again, I'm going to ask, why 8 p.m. to 6 a.m.? Could it be any earlier? Because the concerns I hear are mostly about traffic when the kids are coming home from school and playing in the afternoon until dark. So could it possibly, it sounded like you have most of your deliveries in the morning while you're getting the restaurant ready to go. That's just, might work for some people.
Sure. Part of what I heard was not worried so much about the trucks, but people coming into the neighborhood in the evenings drinking. So one is that, again, the trucks are in the morning, and like in those hours. And then the desire just to, it is arbitrary, I'll give you that, but then, so what time? So we have kids that are under the age of 5, so they might be there all day. So then now you're talking about restricting the access entirely, which I don't think is a fair compromise between a commercial highway zone, which is the most intense zoning, and these houses are a block off, so I think we have to work together, and based on what everyone said, if there's a problem, Perry will change it. I mean, if there is a problem. I mean, I've worked with him on the Matuna Oyster Bar. I've stood in this room for 8 years ago on different projects. We've made changes, and they're always amenable to that. But if it's closed, it'll never be opened again. So that's my concern right now, is like trying to get something that kind of meets in between it. And the trucks won't be coming at 8 o'clock at night. The cars, if there's valet, are going to be pointed out towards Tower Hill Road. And like I said, I mean, maybe people might cut through, but it's not necessarily easy with this layout. You don't look at that and say, oh, I can cut through easily. So it's just trying to effectuate a compromise on those hours. If you have something better, suggest. I mean, my concern.
Suggested like 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't live in the neighborhood.
Sure.
And I don't want to speak for them.
Right.
I just heard many concerns. I am a mother.
Sure, of course. No. I mean,
So,
we all want.
That's part of the character of the neighborhoods.
Right.
That makes South Kingstown so attractive.
Right.
You know?
But then you want to have the commercial activity, so it's just really trying to balance between those two and work on it. And, like I said, if there's problems or violations, with the police overseeing the valet, they're out there at the Matuna Oyster Bar, they see that. If there's problems, the gate can be closed earlier. But I think, at a minimum, this probably won't be open until early next year anyway. And we'll have a better idea of what deliveries and things look like. And if there's a problem, that can be changed. And like I said, I've been with the evolution of the Matuna Oyster Bar. I've seen how it's changed, and Mr. Rasso's always there.
Saying it's a little premature until the restaurant actually opens and we see when the deliveries are.
And the busy peaks on terms of valet, yeah, it's hard to estimate how it's going to go. And by restricting it too much, it might cause more restrictions on the business and failure on something that's been invested in. And as I said, we did a lot of research on the due diligence on this. And
I would still look at 8 p.m. I mean, I don't want to speak for the neighbors. That's something.
Sure.
How we approach that.
I guess one question I have is, I think shifting the time earlier obviously helps the neighbors, because any hour that there is in traffic is better than an hour that there is. What if you were to limit it to ingress instead of egress? So I think it's a compromise because it addresses Perry's motivation to be able to have delivery trucks come in and utilize that long access to actually pull up a truck, unload things, but it also ameliorates the concerns of the neighbors to not have externalization of this business and dumping back into the neighborhood. So would that be a fair compromise? You can have a gate that literally is designed. You could literally design the traffic patterns in this is such a narrow space anyway that I don't think by the dimensions in the zoning ordinance you can actually have two-way traffic and other stuff. So if you were to have parking or trash, and you literally design the site so that you could only have one direction of travel.
And my concern would be if a larger truck, or even like a trash truck, is going out of the main lot there, and we are busy, then they're stuck in that, and it's going to be a traffic. If you have whether it's a dump truck or a trash truck or a large 18-wheeler trying to get out of there, and whether it's a lunch rush that that's a holiday or whatever it is, you're going to have an issue getting it.
I totally understand, I'm not I'm not on your I don't understand all the mechanics of the site as well as you all do, but I think if there was some way to say this is ingress, not egress, that would make neighbors happy and allow you to have your operation. But I don't know the mechanics of how to make that happen.
So first of all, it's private property, so it's not if someone violates that thing, they can't be cited for it. But if you said right turn only, then you are encouraging people to go out that way and make the right turn, right, in a way. But if we were to say, stripe it or sign it so that it's supposedly is just from Narragansett Ave West through to the front of the property, and encourage signage that way, but not prohibit. I mean, that's the only thing, it's difficult, it is tricky, right, yeah. And like I said, I mean, if the building was further, east, I guess, where two trucks could go side by side, that might be different, but you can only get one. Like I said, I'm not sure how many people are gonna do it anyway, but you can either do right turn only and get people out of that area quickly as possible, or you say, stripe it so that it's just going, arrows going one way into the property from Narragansett to Route 1 to discourage people coming out, and, maybe put some signage there, but still, if a truck needs to maneuver, a truck can go through there, because that would just be sort of an internal circulation issue.
Anything else you want to address with regard to the opposition?
No, I mean, like I said, I certainly understand their concerns, and I just think that for a commercial highway to block that entrance permanently is one, not supported by what happened, at least on the deeded records, and granted, it was 1976, so we did not have the zoning and planning regulations that we have now, that you would certainly see something like that. So we don't know whether it was done voluntarily, or it was done later, or it was even related to the approval process. It's nothing in the town records supports that conclusion. I think Mr. Rasso, in the town of South Kingston, he's here, he's responsible, he's responsive. I mean, not everyone has to have a meeting. I have clients that do not meet with neighbors, that do not make any concessions, and he's not that person. So, I think we've indicated that we're, willing to put the gate back for a certain period of time, limit those hours, similar to maybe, again, what is happening next door that appears to be satisfactory to the neighbors. Valet during the busy times, if that's overseen by the South Kingston Police, and then either, a right out only, or just indicate that, it's Narragansett Ave is not meant to be an outlet, whether it's a no outlet sign or something like that. I think that's the best we can do right now. We don't know what's we hope it's all successful. I mean, we do certainly, but if it's not, none of this may come to fruition. So I just think it's hard to tell right now. But I think with, the traffic that we've had, the reports that we've had, it is manageable. There's enough parking on the site. If it gets busy, we go to valet, we go to the stacked, which makes it easier to control the cars and where they point out afterwards. It has gotten busy, but at least with the traffic improvements out there, there is the ability to maneuver. And those, even if people get frustrated making left-hand turns, the fact that there are lights create those things called gaps. And I'm sure you've heard gap study, and you've heard people talk about it. It is a real thing. I mean, I was at Belmont Market before today, and I made a left before that light to come down here. Yeah, I know, I caught my breath a little bit, but I made it. I'm here. So, that is, it is not ideal, but it's balancing interests, and that's part of your job. And I think, if there's other things you think that we could do, I think I think we've met a lot of the we've met the requirements under the ordinance. It's just how much better can we make it for the neighborhood? And I think those are our suggestions now, Mr. Chair and members of the board.
So another question, and potentially just an idea, again, just in the interest. I think everybody wants this to be a successful endeavor. I think we all believe in Perry, and I think the neighbors have all made that abundantly clear. But I also think that it's our job to preserve the characteristics of neighborhoods in South Kingstown. That's thoroughly why we're here. It sounds to me, again, like the goal for the neighborhood is to have less vehicular traffic from customers and patrons coming into the neighborhood to prevent externalization. And it's the goal of Perry and yourself to allow deliveries to come and go. So is there a way to limit that southern egress to just deliveries and not customers by way of a code or a passage that only they would be given to be able to unlock the gate and open it back up?
Well, we definitely had a code for the fire department, but that would be different. And
Like a Knox box situation.
Yeah, I mean, pragmatically, I'll look in Perry, adjust that too, but a place like this, you may have multiple people delivering.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many ways to optimize that through QR codes.
Right.
There's ways to do it. I mean, you have a neighborhood that is really concerned about the character, but you also have a business that sounds like it really does need 2 access points, which I understand.
Right, yeah.
I just wonder if there's, in an ever-changing technological market where there's many ways to give unique passcodes that like when you change your password through Bank of America, they send you a confirmation code. I know this is starting to sound like a very expensive endeavor. I'm not trying to overcomplicate things, but if we can leverage technology to solve this problem, is that something that maybe can be explored? I don't know.
Certainly can be explored, absolutely. I haven't dealt with that in any of my experiences, but technology changes.
Neither have I.
I have no idea.
Neither have I.
Yeah, a
It's
little
just-
barcode scan or
It's a
something.
thought because my thinking is, which is why I asked my question earlier in the evening to the neighbors, is the concern really traffic pouring out of the site and sort of changing the neighborhood, or as this gentleman mentioned, letting the genie out of the bottle? And it sounds like yes, that's the concern. It's nothing to do with your business concept. And as Perry's concern, allowing deliveries to come and go without being log jammed up and having it only be one way, or that's not going to work. It sounds like a single lane situation. So if it needs to be double lane, if there was some way to have a passcode or a scanner that unlocks and locks it, and honestly, for your own operations, it's probably better, because if you're planning to shut in the gate and have it timed to open and close, or be openable and closable at certain hours, you don't want to have a staff member have to remember and to set a timer on their Siri or their Alexa to go out there and lock it and unlock it. If it can just automatically do that, and then an additional feature was just giving access to those truckers coming in and out, that can possibly ameliorate a lot of neighbors' concerns. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a neighbor.
Sure, yeah, no.
Any other questions?
Drone delivery, that's a whole another question. Good.
How would the gate be opened and closed?
Yeah.
Would it be an employee coming out and opening it, and then at whatever time going back and shutting it manually, or how do these things work?
Never had a gate, but I would imagine that it would give some kind of a signal before it closed, and then close at a certain time every day, and same as open.
Automatically.
I was just thinking about it opening automatically, but closing, there would have to be some kind of a signal so it doesn't hit someone's car or whatever. So, or maybe it would have some kind of an eye that made sure it's not going to close, make sure there's no motion near it.
What would you say would be the earliest delivery you might receive?
I would say 6 would.
6 in the morning?
6 would be pretty early, but it's not unheard of when a delivery company has a lot of deliveries.
So what's a reasonable earliest you might get a delivery?
I think 6.
6?
Yeah.
Okay, and what's the latest that you might get a delivery or need trash picked up, or?
I think trash is going to be. I asked for no earlier than 8, so I'd probably say 8 to 9, because they're on the early side.
Your latest delivery, perhaps?
It's generally, most of them are before noon. The latest, I mean, have we had deliveries come at, during a dinner rush? Yeah, dinner rush being like 6 o'clock or something. Yeah, that happens, but generally they're usually in the morning. But smaller companies that don't, smaller companies sometimes have later deliveries, and it's it's not unheard of to get a 4 or 5 o'clock delivery, especially when these companies are busy. They're running all over the state, and I'm their last stop. I try and be the first stop, but that doesn't always work.
Because I think all parties agree that we don't want to see customers, and there's no reason for customers to drive out to West Narragansett. That driveway should be for deliveries, trash pickup, et cetera, not customers. So I'm wondering if there's a way to narrow the opening hours, if you will, of the hours of operation of the gate, to allow for any deliveries, any trash pickup, any, associated business, things like that, but not have customers go through there.
Two points. One, the people in the neighborhood, if they're coming to the restaurant, might want that access. I add that. And second, could we take a 5-minute break? Would that be possible?
Yes. We take a 5-minute break.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Dave, come back.
Right turnout, consideration, valet without making condition. PM to 6 AM to 8, right turn only signage. I mean, you know, when you have a commercial district next to a residential district, always, always, always. No worries.
We heard you.
No worries, we heard you. That's okay. I wouldn't want to wrestle you today. Thank you. Yeah, as long as you have a list of who appeared, I'll help you with it. Well, I'll give you, here, you want me to give you a list of? Yeah, okay, all right, yeah. You got the objectors? Okay, here, I checked them off. Kenny, Toll, Abedi, I guess that name is, Martha Carr, although she did, she didn't speak, so we'll leave that out. And then this William Carr, Veronica Cott, AOT, and Jason, I got DOLLAP, we can clarify that, spoke. Okay. All right, and it's in the record, okay, all right, good. So those are the conditions that I would put in: right turn only from the exit on. Yeah. Okay, all right. Still awake there, buddy?
Hopefully, we're all out there coming to an agreement. We should, oh, by the way, the House of Representatives passed the bill, the debt compromise, and it's going to the Senate right now.
They should really
So we should be able to reach a
The
compromise.
debt relief, you mean, talking about?
I was
think
going
so?
to say, we should. Yeah, you're right.
All right, we ready to proceed?
We ready to go? Yes.
I'm here. Yeah, no, I think so. I may find my client, and if there's people out in the hallway, I'll just let them know you guys are coming back.
Okay, folks, it's getting late. We're going to move on. We have everybody that's remaining here or that wishes to partake? Ms. Noonan, do you have something further?
I do, yes. I've had a chance to think and speak with my client, and we're talking about the gate and the access from Narragansett Avenue West. Our thoughts for that would be that we install a gate. The gate be open for delivery, the gate be for deliveries only. All right, Narragansett Ave is for deliveries only. The gate remains open from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. We close it at 2 p.m. After 2, deliveries can still be made, but we have to figure out, someone has to open it, a code has to be done, something like that. In fact, it'll encourage, hopefully, the people to deliver before 2 o'clock, which would be better for everybody. That works for us. If that works for you and the neighbors, I hope that, so that'll give us, if there's a technology, an easy technology for the gate, maybe, but I don't know that right now. But if we will make sure that it's, the access for Narragansett Avenue West is just for deliveries coming in, and then it's for deliveries. The gate will be from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. The gate remains open. It is closed after that from 2 p.m. to 6 a.m. Deliveries can still be made during those hours, reasonable hours, and then, but we have to deal with opening up the gate. But other than that, the gate will be closed at 2 p.m.
Right turn only sign as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that,
Curious to hear from the neighbors on that. I'm curious to hear from the neighbors on that, but I'm excited to hear about the development there.
well, I think it eliminates basically the commercial traffic from that back exit.
Right.
I mean, it's closed at 2 p.m., and the restaurant crowd is not going to show up until much later.
Exactly, and the delivery aspect as well. So patrons can't come.
Correct. And there, like I said, there may be deliveries after 2, but the gate will be closed, and we have to coordinate that. And that
Work that out.
Patrons can't come and go by signage, but like physically, if they had the will to go through and break the rule, they could.
That, true, right. But again, that would just be from 6 to 2, if someone wanted to do it, but
No oysters for them. If they
no oysters for them, no, none. So, all right.
Close the hearing. Board members, let's start with Mr. Diamond. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. The hearing is closed. Thank you.
I like the direction they're going in. I think it's certainly massive improvement where we started this evening. Sorry. I like the direction this is going, and I think it's a massive improvement from where the discussion began. I certainly understand not wanting to place undue limitations before before more things are fleshed out. These things tend to be very iterative, and I think it's also helpful that this is not an unknown quantity. This is somebody who's an established business owner, well respected. There was no discussion on the applicant's character that was anything less than stellar tonight, and also around town. I think that gives me hope that if you can make all the plans in the world, and things can go wrong because there's an unforeseen thing. And I think that what has to happen for things to work out in most things in life is a good plan, but also good character. And I think that the fact that this person has good character would hopefully make it so that if you had to think of something different, this applicant would not only have good character, but would hopefully be collaborative and communicative with the neighbors to say, what would you want for this to be successful? So that does give me hope. But I'm curious to hear other board members' opinions tonight.
Well, I'm certainly was interested. I didn't speak very much on this particular subject, mainly because we're here just for one reason and one reason only, and that is the fact that this is a special use permit associated with a liquor license, which will have its appearance before the town council, has to go back before the town council as well. And it's nice to flesh out all this stuff before that, but as I remember, things happen. Most of you don't remember, but we already gave approval for this particular plat several months before the pandemic for another restaurant at that time, and they were going to go forward and try to obtain a liquor license as well, and they did, and then the pandemic hit, and of course everything went away. And this could happen with this application as well. So whatever you come up with is going to be the good for the neighbors, I hope, and for Mr. Rasso as well. And I certainly will vote for the proposal to go forward at this point, and wish it luck.
Mr. Rosen? Ms. Walsh?
I'm fine with it.
Ms. Hicks?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think that if that particular piece of property had no existing driveway that emptied out onto West Narragansett, we would have seen nobody in the audience tonight. So nobody had a concern about the restaurant or the operation of a restaurant. It was that. And so I think that your proposal to have a gate that's open from 6 to 2 is about as fair as we could ask of you, because even the high school isn't dismissed until about 5 minutes after 2. And then the middle schools and the elementary schools follow. So certainly in the afternoon, your gate will be closed before the first child gets off a school bus. So I'm very fine with your proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks. I couldn't agree with my colleague, Mr. Diamond, more. I think he summed it up perfectly. Compromises have been made. The arguments have been modified, nullified to a big degree, but more importantly, he spoke to the character of the applicant. And the applicant is an established businessman here in this community and has been very reasonable with his requests, been very reasonable to issues that might have arisen on his original property, and I have no reason to doubt that he would not be most accommodating to any issues that arose here. Now, with regard to the liquor license, as Mr. Rosen stated, that's really the reason we're here, but that does elicit the argument of additional traffic, parking, ingress and egress, which we have to consider under the special use permit. So having taken that time to listen to the neighbors, to listen to the applicant's proposal, I think we've fleshed out as much as we can with regard to this application. So I certainly am looking forward to making this or having the applicant make this a success. I know he will, and I have no intention of opposing it. So I think we have a consensus on this board. Would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Vice Chairman, I will make the motion.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'm going to go fairly quickly due to the hour. So please, if I leave anything out, please let me know.
Amy will fix it.
And Amy will fix it. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the petition of Matunic, oh God, I need my glasses, Matunic Market to convert an existing building at 151 Old Tower Hill Road into a restaurant and retail space. They're not making any changes to the building. Okay, let me go back. The zoning district is Commercial Highway, and it is right on Old Tower Road. The special use permit is required, not because it's a new restaurant retail, but because they are requesting a liquor license, a permit to serve liquor. And the combination of restaurant retail means they'll be active and busy most of the day. I think the hours for the retail are 8:30 to 7:30. The hours for the restaurant are 11 or 12 till 11 till midnight. The following individuals spoke as representatives of the applicant. And we've got Eliza Noonan, attorney, Pay Bronk, I don't know. Expert witness, Robert Clinton, expert witness. And I think you spoke on the traffic issues. And then Perry Russo, the owner. Okay. And no other individual spoke at the hearing in support of the request, but several individuals had written letters or spoke at the hearing in opposition to the request. But in terms of the issues, mostly centered on the idea that traffic would increase in the neighborhood because of the removal of a barrier from the back of the restaurant leading on to West Narragansett Street. And that was, we will go further into that. Ms. Spence read the list of materials that were entered into the record, including the concerns of the neighborhood that borders on the proposed restaurant retail space. The board, however, finds that the special use is specifically authorized by this ordinance, and I think the reference was, it was right here.
301 and 907
Yes, relieve. And it is specifically authorized in the zoning ordinance. The board finds, by and large, that the special use meets all of the criteria set forth in the subsection of this ordinance authorizing each special use because of the setup and the plans of the owner. The board finds that the granting of the special use permit will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of this ordinance or the comprehensive plan of the town. In doing so, the board has considered whether or not satisfactory provisions and arrangements have been or will be made concerning, but not limited to the following matters. And we'll go through those, but just in general, the owner and the person drafting the proposal is an experienced restaurateur. He knows business, he's a local person, he knows about the traffic and knows how to run a restaurant, and therefore he, with his team, has considered most of the issues here and has dealt with them in the past. So I think it gave the board a great deal of comfort to know his level of experience and how much thought and effort they put in to preparing this whole project and making the petition. So one of the concerns was the ingress and egress to the lot and to the existing or proposed structures. And the neighbors especially came forward here at the hearing and in writing about the concern for pedestrian safety safety by removing the barrier that had been in place behind the restaurant that had been there for many years. But in order to have the restaurant be successful and have a plan, the owner has thought through this and is willing to make some changes in order to increase or ensure the pedestrian safety and convenience as much as possible and to maintain the integrity of the neighborhood behind the restaurant. I think our acting chairman spoke well when he said when you have a commercial highway next to a residential area, there's bound to be some compromise on both parts. And in this case, we will be adding a couple of conditions at the end. But I did want to say the off-street parking and loading areas are fine. There are 58 parking spaces in existence, and the size of the restaurant determines that it requires 55 parking spaces. So there's adequate parking. The owner has made very detailed plans for trash, storage, and delivery areas. And the utilities are in place. There are no new utilities. The screening and buffering is very much a concern, and the owner has already added a buffer and I think plants to the back where the residential area exists. We spent a great deal of time talking about the signs and plans to put in additional signs to ensure that people don't use a back exit, that it be used for delivery and not for people to cut through the neighborhood. The owner has also considered exterior lighting and the position of the building next to, the character of the building next to the neighborhood. There's no open space. The setup of the restaurant retail area is using existing buildings, so that's not applicable. And then, of course, the issue of general compatibility with lots or abutting zoning districts. The commercial lots, very similar, if not more attractive when it's finished. The residential area we've discussed. Most of the comments from the residential area, the concerns were about a gate that had been in existence and is now open, and the concern of the traffic flowing through from the restaurant into the neighborhood, posing possible safety concerns, but increased traffic and a change in the neighborhood. And one of the things that the owner and Attorney Noonan suggested is some compromise in terms of the hours that the gate would be opened. And I think you all can, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, the condition we would put on it is that they continue to consider ways to block the traffic flow, not the exit 24 hours, but the traffic flow. And one of the suggestions was to close the gate between the hours of 2 p.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning, therefore to allow the flow of deliveries in the morning when there's less likely to be traffic or people leaving the restaurant, and then to close the gate in the afternoon. And I think...
You would make that a condition?
Well, would we, or would we just follow up? Did you think it needed to be, or just that the condition would be to address or refine the...
I would suggest it be a condition, but I'd rather not leave it open.
But I...
Fair. Condition?
I think they've got to work it out.
So we don't necessarily need a condition.
No, okay. Condition? Amen. I believe it should be a condition that the 2 p.m. to 6 a.m., as you stated, is a condition.
And that they would make additional effort with signage and
Sure, you can make that.
as it
condition
develops,
also.
as the restaurant is opened and developed. Okay. Is that okay, Jamie?
Yeah, we'll work on the wording. I would just, applicant to install signage as appropriate, something like that.
And to, as far as possible, close the gate between 2 PM and,
Wouldn't say as far as possible. I would say closed, right? You're talking about that as a condition.
okay, that's
so
what I've
there's no-
said.
Yeah.
And with that, I recommend approval of the petition.
Motion made by Ms. Walsh. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Hicks. Any further discussion by the board? Hearing none, Ms. Walsh.
Wait a second.
Excuse me?
Clarification, Amy. This is all together in the same motion, correct?
Yeah,
Condition
that would be that would be a condition of approval.
it can't be split.
Well, the way we do our decisions is it's a decision with a condition. If you're talking about a vote to see if there's a consensus for the condition, I mean, that's up to the chair,
Yeah, I think we have that consensus.
And we accept the condition. On behalf of the applicant, we accept the condition.
Any further discussion by the board? Hearing none, Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
Ms. Hicks.
Aye.
Mr. Diamond.
Aye.
Mr. Rosen. Chairman, Mr. Daniels, aye. Congratulations and best wishes.
Hey, thank you. What's that? You were. Yeah, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Yes, thank you. That's it.
Any further business to come before the board here tonight? Amy, do you have anything for us? Anyone?
No.
Where do we stand on the advertisement for the rule change?
We've done, the only step that's left is for me to provide the members with an updated copy of the bylaws. That'll be done before the next meeting.
Attendance, next meeting is June 16th. I will not be here. Okay? No, 16th. Oh, it is? We moved it? Because on the schedule, it was, I think it said the 16th. Oh, it says 21? Okay. No, I still won't be here. So you have 4 members.
I'll leave for vacation the next day, so, yeah. Thank you all. Exactly, yeah.
Okay, hearing,
Yeah, promptly at 7:04.
hearing that the board has nothing further,
Do we have minutes?
do we need to accept the minutes? No minutes yet, that's right, 2 weeks ago, not time enough. Motion to adjourn.
Much approved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hearing is adjourned.